You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC, where it is also Thursday. We didn't have one last week, did we? Because of Boris Blimmin Johnson interfered. Well, we had a Thursday, you're quite right. But we didn't have a mystery hour. Because I presume, like me, I say Thursday, you think mystery hour. That's it. It's like Crackerjack on Fridays back when we were kids, if you're of a certain age. So we didn't have one last week because Boris Johnson's shenanigans. How many times has any politician ever interfered more with our schedules and our programmes than Boris Blimmin Johnson? But as things stand, all being well, there will be a mystery hour today from 12-ish, because that expected rise in interest rates is one that we will report on briefly, I think probably with the help of Danny Blanchflower, who's held our hand through such territories rather warmly in the past. So that's coming up. Second hour, I'm at the moment intending to dedicate it entirely to the 75th anniversary of Windrush, which the Daily Mail has inevitably used as a platform from which to attack Harry and Meghan, or Meghan and Harry, this morning. I'll say that again because the mind boggles. Daily Mail's used the 75th anniversary of Windrush to attack Meghan and Harry. But we probably won't be going down that path. Neither, Toby, will I be following your advice this morning. Toby's already been in touch. He says, I hope you will be beginning your show with an hour-long discussion of cat children. I don't know about you, but I can't move for all these children identifying as animals. Toby, you're quite right. I tripped over a cat child's tail as I was making my way into the studio this morning. He says it's very distracting and it seems to be the most pressing issue facing the country. Please don't spend any time discussing the difference between fiscal and monetary policy in the context of the Bank of England's decisions later today. Sorry, Toby, I'm going to have to let you down on that one. We are going to start with matters economical, but not necessarily the specifics of the difference between fiscal and monetary policy, although I think I may have inadvertently blurred the lines a little yesterday. I'm drawn instead to the words of former Chancellor Philip Hammond on Andrew Marr's consistently superb LBC programme with you at 6 o'clock. Weekday evenings on this radio station. Would you like to have a listen to what Philip Hammond had to say last night to Andrew?
This is now about the labour market, and the labour market in the UK is very tight. So inflation is being driven by rising wages. And there are two ways we can tackle this. You can either dampen down the economy as a whole by raising interest rates and reducing economic activity, slowing growth. Or you could try to soften the labour market, which, of course, in the days when we were in the single market would have happened automatically. More labour would have come in, attracted by higher wage rates here. That's not happened now. And I think the government has regarded any relaxation of migration rules as being politically toxic. But rising mortgage rates on the scale we're seeing is also politically toxic. So I think we might have to have a debate about the balance between the two.
That was a very sage towards the end from Andrew there. That's, I see, sitting at the feet of a master this morning. There it is. It's a really insightful point, or at least a really thought-provoking point, the tension between two forms of political toxicity. The interest rate rises, which are, sending mortgages into the stratosphere for millions of people. All of us on LBC have been following that now for some time, possibly not quite as long as Martin Lewis, who was warning about this ticking time bomb, I think, as long ago as February. But the political toxicity of that, which is a very real, in many ways, this is the essence of modern British politics, isn't it? Because what you have is a factual catastrophe, an evidential catastrophe, a catastrophe that affects people very immediately, obviously, and really, versus the mythical catastrophe of immigration, the people in Nigel Farage's posters, the ones in the Daily Mail comment section, not the ones you know or work with or your children go to school with, the other ones, the awful ones that are nicking all the jobs while also living on benefits and staying unemployed, those dreadful immigrants of Daily Mail editors' imaginings. That's a non-existent catastrophe. Crikey, I knew I was going to talk about that this morning, but I hadn't spotted the absolute perfection of this paradigm for modern British politics or political media relations. On the one hand, a real, fact-based catastrophe, which is politically toxic. On another, a completely mythologized, evidence-free catastrophe, propaganda-based catastrophe, which is also politically toxic. Gosh. So, I mean, the obvious question to ask is Philip Hammond correct? Is it the case that the labour market is stagnant? Is the labour market responsible in large part for the broader economic situation? Because wages go up, inflation goes up. There's a sort of there's a natural poetry to the idea of a space being filled up by available contents, in this case labour, but it can't be filled up. So it's an unsustainable bubble, if you like, that sees job vacancies not be filled. Therefore, wages rise higher and higher. You're never going to fill the wages. You're just competing with each other for a workforce that is too small. That's perhaps the best way to think about it. Employers are competing with each other for a workforce that is not big enough to satisfy all of their needs. On the other hand, objectively, and by squinting a little bit and not looking at the whole picture, rising wages are a good idea. It's not that long ago the Bank of England were calling for us to stop asking for pay rises, weren't they? A slightly infelicitous phraseology which saw them get attacked for the fact that they earn quite good money themselves. So that seems to have gone a little bit south. Brexit, obviously, the biggest elephant in the room all the time on these matters. Hammond perfectly able to mention it because he is not tethered to either the Tory party leadership or the Labour Party leadership, so he's allowed to call a spade a spade. He's allowed to point at something and describe it accurately for reasons I don't fully understand. Keir Starmer's lot are still declining to do that, and for reasons I fully understand, Rishi Sunak's lot can't. So the labour shortage would be fixed by freedom of movement or more immigration. They can't call it freedom of movement, obviously, not yet. We suggested some time ago that they would bring in something called liberty of motion. In fact, we said it was absolutely inevitable that liberty of motion would be introduced, and how exactly it would look, we weren't sure, but it would generally involve there being so many sectors where special exemptions were offered up for foreign workers that there might as well not be any sectors at all because there were so many of them. Do you see what I mean? So you start with agriculture, then you move into hospitality, possibly finance. You're looking at, retail, whatever it is. Eventually, there won't be any sectors left that haven't got special exemptions for foreign workers. But we can't admit that there aren't any areas where there are no special exemptions for foreign workers because that would be freedom of movement with one crucial difference. All right? Hands up. What would be the crucial difference between the sort of liberty of motion that Philip Hammond is talking about introducing and the sort of freedom of movement that Priti Patel told you should celebrate the abolition of just a couple of actually that's not true, a couple of very long years ago? What's the big difference between Hammond-style liberty of motion, which is a good thing, and Patel-style freedom of movement, which you should celebrate the abolition of? Anybody? Bueller? Yeah, we wouldn't have the liberty of motion, you and me and our kids. Well, I might actually, thanks to the apostrophe in my name. But most of us wouldn't have liberty of motion. We wouldn't have Hammond's liberty of motion. That would just be for foreign workers coming here. They'd be at liberty to motion in this direction. We would not be at liberty to motion outwards, to go to France to work, for example, or Germany, as many people did, of course, during the 1980s recession, particularly in the construction trade. That's fascinating, right? Mostly I tell you that there's no pleasure whatsoever in being proved right, and I tell you it so often that it's probably just as annoying as me saying I told you so. So I will be mindful of that. But on this one, I don't know why, I am deriving a modicum of satisfaction from it, because I think at the time that we did it on this programme, nobody else was saying it. I genuinely think that we talked about the inevitability of having to either reverse or rebrand freedom of movement, and the absolutely inalienable fact that it would involve people being freer to come here while we remained completely confined to these islands. That's what they wanted you to celebrate. That's what Priti Patel wanted you to celebrate. She wanted you to celebrate the abolition of your own freedom of movement, brackets, because it means foreigners won't be able to come here, close brackets. Well, our current immigration rates are the highest that they've ever been. That is worth mentioning. It may not stay that way forever. But the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Philip Hammond, who not long ago, of course, was being lionised by all of the Brexit-supporting newspapers as him and Theresa May tried to at least mitigate some of the damage that was destined to be done to the country. The former Chancellor of the Exchequer Philip Hammond is pretty unequivocally stating that the UK's labour shortage means we need to open up our migration channels. And he went further, actually, a closer relationship with the EU, particularly for services, that will be deeply problematic for many of my colleagues. I don't want to go too deep. I don't want to go down necessarily the services route or the planning systems route. I want to focus pretty much exclusively on the relationship between the workforce and immigration. Liberty of inward motion. That's a rather nice phrase. You should have signed that text. I would have given you a shout out. I will give a shout out to Nick in Fareham, who was one of the first to shout, "It's one way, James. It's one way." Just pause and think about that for a minute. What are you going to do? I'm voting for Brexit to control our borders. There's too many of them coming here. Too many of them coming here. Okay, how's that working out for you? Brilliant. There's more of them coming here than ever. And somehow, for reasons I don't fully understand, they're the wrong people coming because they're not filling the jobs that need to be filled in order to put some sort of pressure on our economy and bring down inflation. Quite incredible. Quite incredible. So, is Hammond right? 0345 6060 973. Would anyone answer this question, do you think, with a straight face? What is more politically toxic for you personally? More immigration or higher interest rates? More immigration or crippling mortgages? I just don't know if anyone would come at that. Because obviously if you're going to answer it's higher immigration, you're almost certainly a racist. And I don't know how comfortable people are admitting that in public anymore. There was that little window, wasn't there, in the run-up to 2016 and for a few years afterwards. But it seems to be in retreat again now, albeit that the Daily Mail uses the 75th anniversary of Windrush to attack Meghan and Harry. I don't know that anyone would say, I don't care how high my mortgage is, as long as we can keep them out. But the number you need, if you do fancy essaying that position, is 0345 6060 973. The sort of reality of liberty of inward motion, which I think might be John in Mill Hill, as he claimed, yes, I think it was John in Mill Hill who's now claimed the credit for his original phraseology. It would work, I think. I think that's pretty obvious, that you can bring down inflation by bringing down wages. And, of course, wages coming down and inflation coming down means you're not losing money in what economists call real terms, because if inflation comes down, then the money you're earning goes further. But the reality of what it's actually like is probably the best way into this. So I think I want to know what the abolition of freedom of movement has done to your business. So there's two ways in. First of all, is Philip Hammond right? 0345 6060 973. Number two, what has the abolition of freedom of movement done to your business? Let's just examine the evidence for Philip Hammond's claim while also examining the accuracy of it. So whatever business it is that you're in, how has the cessation of free movement from continental Europe into the United Kingdom affected your ability to pull up the shutters every morning, keep bums on seats, keep customers happy, keep the tills ringing? And don't hold back on the grounds of repetition or thinking that people won't be interested. The only way we can properly examine the theoretical speculations of former Chancellor Philip Hammond is by looking at the evidential experiences of people at the coalface. All right? 0345 6060 973 is the number that you need. And the third question, which I don't expect anyone to answer, is what is more politically toxic? Crippling mortgages or hard-working foreigners finding it easier to come here and do jobs that are currently empty? Andy in Englefield Green points out that your liberty of motion theory is particularly relevant today, James, because, of course, it reflects the stateless state of so many who came here to help rebuild the nation, rebuild the economy 75 years ago. You're right. We'll move on to that in the second hour of the programme, hopefully in a sort of warm way, but it will be entirely up to people calling in. Philip Hammond last night on LBC with Andrew Marr explaining that the economy would benefit from freer movement of labour, most obviously from the nearest countries. That's another mostly logical position that's been torn up by Brexit. What's the most obvious place from which to secure foreign labour, foreign-born labour? Well, the nearest countries to us, boss. No. Indonesia. and barley. That's the places you need to be going. So that there it is. Is he right? And what's the problem like at your end? Catherine's in Bristol. Catherine, what made you pick up the phone?
Oh, hi, James.
Hello.
Hi. So I've got 2 restaurants in Bristol, 2 pizzerias, and I want to expand. We want to expand, and we have the capital to do so, and we can't find the staff.
Just full stop.
Full stop, yeah. Particularly kitchen staff, so chefs.
Right.
And we have tried, we do continually try to recruit people from the UK to do these jobs.
Sure.
We offer training, and we have some sort of limited success in that area, but not enough to expand the business in the way that we want to do so.
Well, I mean, in simple terms then, what Philip Hammond says is completely correct.
Yeah, without any shadow of a doubt.
If it were easier for people, I mean, whether or not the welcome would feel as warm as it did before 2016, I don't know. But I mean, at least it would be worth a try. If the alternative is making mortgages ever higher, you would be opening a new business tomorrow if there was a better supply of labour.
Yes, and that would create jobs, more jobs for lots of people, not just, people that we could potentially bring in from overseas, but people in the UK as well.
Because you'd have a whole workforce, and it would create more work for suppliers and everybody else in the supply chain who is. So I mean, it is almost impossible to fully grasp the idiocy of what we've done to ourselves as an economy. We have made it impossible for you to open a new business, while politicians who don't seem to know their backsides from their elbow and commentators keep talking about growth.
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to, the problem is also compounded by the fact that we have tried to bring people in on work visas. So I've identified someone in Tunisia who wants to come, but it's prohibitively expensive for a chef in Tunisia to pay the fees that he needs to pay.
So you've got a pizzeria, is that the correct word?
Yes, it is.
You have a pizzeria in, for example, Turin, who quite fancies 2 or 3 years in Bristol, so he can learn English, albeit with a bit of an accent.
He speaks perfect English already. He passes all the tests.
Well, no, I'm thinking about the one in Turin rather than Tunisia.
Oh,
he previously could have just hopped on a plane and been with you by tea time.
Exactly.
And now you've got to find someone in Tunisia who's up for it and can't come here because of all the red tape.
Yeah, red tape and the costs that he can't generate the money, the cash that he needs to do it. It's cost us nearly £2,000 already. I can't get this guy here. I don't know what happens to that £2,000, whether I ever get it back.
Sure.
It doesn't come. So we lost money hand over fist. We still don't have staff and we can't grow our business.
Can I ask what sort of wage you're offering?
So we pay... do you mean an hourly rate?
Well, for a chef. I mean, whatever you prefer, however you prefer to put it.
Well, they range, depending on how experienced, up to about £13 an hour.
Yeah. So it's not bad at all.
No, it's not. No,
and there's just literally nobody there to do it. You need you need some qualifications. You can't. Can you learn on the job, or do you need?
Yes, we offer training on the job completely, but we just can't find the people to do it.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm sorry for the situation that you find yourself in, and I'm also sorry that even on this programme, which is a little bit Brexit obsessed, we probably don't do this often enough because we are, some days we're trawlers and some days we're seagulls, but you need something like Philip Hammond's comments to focus your attention in on the issue that Catherine is living with every day. So there it is, right? Whether it's some know-nothing commentator or some know-nothing politician like Liz Truss or some know-a-bit politician like Rishi Sunak, always talking about growth, never mentioning the single major reason why an entrepreneur like Catherine cannot open a new premises in Bristol tomorrow. The reason is the abolition of freedom of movement, which the people in power are still telling you that you should be celebrating. 10:25 is the time. Sam's in Clapham. Sam, what made you pick up the phone?
I just wanted to challenge a little bit what Richard Hammond says. I
don't think you can challenge what Richard Hammond has to say on these matters, or indeed Jeremy Clarkson or what's his name? Not Philip May. What's the James May? But Philip Hammond, however, Sam, you are open. You are welcome to critique.
I don't even know how that happened. So it's just because, so it's not wrong that actually more people in the economy would actually bring down inflation. But we do actually need this wage rise. We have actually been getting poorer and poorer. And the problem with the way that inflation is being dealt with right now, so raising interest rates assumes that people have lots of money and they're going out and spending it. And they basically want to raise interest rates because what the banks are supposed to do is put up savings rates so that everyone goes, I won't spend my money, I will actually save it. I won't go and take out loans and get watches and cars or whatever else it is. I'm going to save my money instead because it's more valuable. What's actually happening, and what there is so much research and evidence to suggest, is that our inflation is largely being driven by profiteering and corporate profiteering. It is not down to a wage price spiral, which is the push.
That's not true. It's one of three elements in it. So I don't think you can use the word largely. It's not. Neither has it been conclusively proved that profiteering is a key driver. But I'm like you. I'm more than willing to accept that it is. But
you couldn't
the
really
jobs. But whatever you do, who's going to work in Catherine's Pizza Palace?
Look, there's no denying that that's the case, that actually having more people would slow down inflation, but that wage increase does need to happen. It's just true. So that £13 an hour, if we weren't experiencing the level of inflation that we've got right now, would be a much better wage than it was maybe, I don't know, about a year ago.
Yes, no, but that goes without saying. But that's a bit chicken and egg, isn't it? Is that you bring down inflation and the wages as they are now go further.
But if you tackle that third pillar, the corporate profiteering, which it's not been conclusively proved, you couldn't really conclusively prove something of this magnitude.
Well, you can come pretty close just by pointing at the profits.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the biggest driver of our inflation right now is food prices, and if you look at the profits of supermarkets versus the prices that we're paying, and it's really
they're not really spreading the burden. They're not really spreading the burden, are they? But
even slightly.
Economic growth without having more people going into the workforce is surely impossible.
Economic growth without having more people going into the workforce, that is impossible.
That's the thing they never admit, isn't it? They talk about growth while telling us to celebrate the abolition of free movement. So celebrate a reduction in the available labour force, but also fetishise growth. It's probably the stupidest combination of...
Well, it's the same way that our housing market worked. You limit the supply of things and it goes up in value.
Yes.
The housing market's designed to prop up our weak economy. There is obviously issues with that as well, though, when you put in lots and lots of people. One of the biggest things that's causing sort of later issues is as people live longer and longer, we're going into pension age and there are less people contributing. The theory is you can add more people at the bottom, but you actually have to find a kind of balance.
When you talk about property, I can see who that's good for. Whether we're right or wrong, we think it's good that our properties are going up in value. Who is it good for when wages go up so much that you can't find someone to do the job? Some of you questioning the £13 figure that Catherine mentioned, which you're perfectly entitled to do, but economically, if you want growth, and that is the amount of money that is available to pay somebody working in a kitchen, it'd be about 26 grand a year, which I think is around about the national average. You can't open the premises. So you can say, well, they should pay more. You put it as high as you can go in order to open the premises and make a profit. And if you can't get anybody when you're paying as much as you can pay, then you don't open a premises. Now, I can live with that. You can live with that. But if you want growth, you can't live with that. You literally can't. It's physics. It's not economics. You cannot grow unless you are putting more in. I don't think I'm going to win a Nobel Prize for that analysis, but you can see where I'm coming from. Thomas Watts is here now with your headlines. The last research I saw hit the figure of about 330,000 workers in the UK being, if you like, missing, a shortfall. And that, I think, is for jobs that already exist rather than the jobs in businesses that are not being opened, which our first caller alluded to. This looks at Office for National Statistics figures and June 22 overall reduction in net immigration. That, of course, has gone back up again, but without a measurable impact on the labour shortages. So, former Chancellor Philip Hammond explaining last night why you need to make it easier for people to come here and work. And the people that you would most obviously target with that sort of policy are the people that are nearest, i.e. in Europe. But politically toxic is a phrase that Philip Hammond used. I'm not sure he's right, you know. I said all along, just call it liberty of motion. Don't labour the point that it's entirely one way, and just explain that unless we start doing it, then prices are going to keep going up. And people will be all right with it. I still think that's true. 10:35 is the time. Chris is in Salford. Chris, what would you like to say?
Hi, James.
Hello.
First of all, just to say, I've really, it's my first time on, so forgive the nerves and everything.
Oh.
But I'm really, really pleased about the way that you've campaigned about returning to the EU and obviously the EU situation. Just to give you a little insight into my business, I run a removals and storage company, and we ship people all over the world, including the European Union. So on the advent of Brexit, of course, that meant 27 additional customs procedures for us to learn for each country that we ship to. So that had an impact on price for starters.
Yes.
So you can start talking about inflationary there. In regards to freedom of movement, obviously, the last thing I want to see is wages driven down, and
Sure.
I'm an employer.
Yes.
And the reason I don't want wages driven down, James, is because in my business, we're a real living wage, living hours accredited company, which means we guarantee our staff at least the cost of living at £10.90 an hour, and we pay them at least 16 hours a week minimum. Of course, most of our staff are salaried and well looked after. And the reason we do that is because it has made my company more productive, and it has created growth in my company. So I'm very loath to see wages, a lever for driving wages down. So Philip Hammond is partially right, but not fully right. The Bank of England are completely wrong on this, by the way.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that?
Well, because simply they're using traditional levers to try and control inflation, and those traditional levers don't work when it's not a traditional problem.
But I've seen this challenged quite robustly. I was pretty much singing from that hymn sheet yesterday, and I had a couple of exchanges after the show that made me question it. I mean, all of the models show that I think, regardless of conditions, interest rate rises do bring down inflation eventually.
Of course, but via a recession, which then
Yes.
impacts wages badly, impacts people's quality of life badly, damages the productivity that I've just talked about. So there's an even bigger picture that the damage done creates a larger economic damage in the long run.
Yes.
So
no, I don't dispute that. And they're now mooting recession, aren't they? The word is actually being mentioned or in the context of a price worth paying for bringing down inflation, which Rishi Sunak later today will describe as a moral duty. He feels he has a moral duty to bring down inflation.
He has a moral duty to improve the lot of the people who he's supposed to represent, especially those who voted Brexit, who thought their lives were going to be better.
Bless him.
Let's talk about productivity as a nation. We are one of the least productive nations in the EU and certainly in the G7.
Yes.
If you want to increase productivity, value your staff, value your employees, see them as assets, don't see them as resources, and allow them to flourish within your business.
You need a bit of investment as well, of course, in infrastructure and equipment.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I love because that old model of if you want a rich person to work harder, give him more money, and if you want a poor person to work harder, give them less money. Just your business clearly flies in the face of that. So what about the simple question of foreign workers coming here? Within some sort of reason, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, it's always a difficult one because, you know, what drove the vote towards Brexit was all the things that you've quite rightly cited, which was Johnny foreigners coming in, taking my job, driving down my wages, and there was, of course, and we can't deny that, an element of truth to that.
Yes.
But equally, it doesn't have to be that way. If businesses are responsible and take a responsible approach to their assets, it doesn't necessarily mean driving down wages. What it does mean, though, and you're quite right, we need more people for growth. We need more people for the NHS. We need more people for my business. I'm struggling to recruit, even though it's a low entry-level business.
Sure.
You know, you don't need big qualifications to shift furniture around, James.
No.
But we're struggling for people, and that's because the pool of resources that are out there are very small. That said, James, and I will just temper everything I've said with, there is a pool of resources that are often ignored, and there are 20% of our country are economically inactive, and they're economically inactive because they're probably suffering from mental illness.
Yes.
And that mental illness is largely driven by poor wages and poor jobs.
Poor lifestyle.
Absolutely.
It is. I mean, you covered a lot of ground there. Almost all of it, I think, pretty much unimpeachable. And yet here we are, Do you think, and I don't know if you're closer to the action on this one than I am, I tend not to get the calls I used to get from people really passionately motivated by objections to immigration. But I don't feel it is as politically toxic as it was when Philip Hammond was in Downing Street.
I'd love to think that, James. But
specifically for working people rather than small boats. I know they're trying to politically toxify that. It's still there, is it?
Well, I think the two get conflated, James.
Well, of course they do, very deliberately and cynically.
Absolutely, and therein lies your problem.
Therein lies the problem. So I say we need to get international removals staff to Salford, and someone else starts talking about refugees and asylum seekers. And then they complain about people coming here being working-age men, which is, in many ways, the ultimate irony.
Just what we need.
Just what we don't want. Thank you, Chris. Honestly, sometimes you can't quite believe what's in front of your own eyes, can you? The next time you hear that, working-age men, we don't want working-age men coming here. Oh, no, absolutely not. Dan's in Sutton. Dan, what would you like to say?
Hello, good morning to you, James.
Hello, Dan.
Before I actually try and make any point, I know you've got time precious. Can I pass on my sympathies to the people of Nottingham?
Go on.
And can I say my great gratitude for the people of the Windrush generation?
You can. Although, I'm grateful to you for doing that, although it does sort of suggest that every caller will now feel that they must come on and do something similar. So I think we can all take it as read that the tragedy in Nottingham a couple of weeks ago is one that has affected us all.
When I was a much younger man.
And that we are all very supportive of Windrush. But just let me steer you back to the conversation that we're having today.
Okay. So the point I made to your researcher, your colleague,
yes,
is that there was a touch on immigration and things like that, people coming into the country and jobs and so on. I'll tell you what, mate, I can't wait to leave.
You are becoming an expat, as we call them, because, of course, you're British. Where are you going?
Vietnam or Thailand.
Okay.
I'm a former firefighter. I've got a fire service pension.
And that will go much further.
I'll tell you, a 3-course meal for £2.50, mate. I'll take that.
I would too. You don't even get that. Why? What are the reasons for this? Simply because of your cost of living, or are there other reasons as well?
I just don't see why people would be queuing up to come here when actually the place is falling apart.
Yes.
There must be better places to go.
That's not very patriotic, though, is it?
Sorry?
I said that's not very patriotic, is it?
Mate, I was a firefighter for 25 years. That's patriotic enough.
But you've done your bit. I completely understand. But I mean, where are you, Sutton? Is it falling apart? I mean, I'm writing a book called How They Broke Britain. So obviously I'm pretty close to your analysis of how bad things are at the moment. But whether or not that becomes a deterrent to people... Look, you imagine you're Italian, right? And you want to come to England, you want to learn English. Learning English is still a very valuable skill. And you could come here for 3 or 4 years, work in the hospitality trade and then go home with fluent English. You've enhanced your own employability and you've got a lot going on. So I don't agree with you on that. I think at your time of life, looking at your options, it makes a lot of sense to go somewhere hot where you can get a 3-course meal for £2.50.
In this world, at the moment, you can learn English online. You don't have to travel.
I wasn't expecting to get bogged down in this debate, but you're much better off doing it. I've got a daughter doing A-level foreign language at the moment. You're much better off having regular conversations and unexpected conversations outside of the academic environment. There's nothing like working in a country and living in a country to learn the lingo, Dan. I think. How's your Vietnamese?
No, but I learned it well on it. I'm considering going it in the next 12, 14 months.
All right.
Doesn't mean I can't learn it in the meantime.
No, I'm not saying you can't. I just wondered. I was just interested to know. And of course, you'd have to do it online because, and also, I mean, I've spent some time in Thailand. I don't know Vietnam, but as is often the case, English is a widely spoken language. I wish you well. I do. I mean, make sure you have a really good look before you leap, Dan. But certainly, the cost of living combined with a pension we nearly did a story earlier in the week about people over 65 going back to work simply because they can't afford not to. They thought that they'd done enough. We spoke yesterday, didn't we, to an estate agent, I think it was Neil in Coulsdon, who thought he'd retired on health grounds after 30 years as an estate agent, but his mortgage has just nearly doubled, so he has to go back to work in some way, shape or form. So looking at completely wild options, looking at completely different choices, I find the appeal of going somewhere different, completely easy to understand. I'll miss you though, Dan. I'll miss you. I can't be massaging these radars with my listeners emigrating to Vietnam or Thailand. It's 10:45. Some slight shift already in blame apportioning. You can see that the Bank of England coming in for a lot of criticism, possibly justifiably. I'm not sure that I have the knowledge to speak definitively in that particular field. But I do remember what Rishi Sunak had to say about who would be responsible for bringing down inflation or even debt and all the rest of those pledges. I think did he have a little laminated card? Did he carry a little laminated card around? He's got a touch of the David Brents about him, hasn't he? I know everyone else compares him to the lad out of, is it In Betweeners? Is he? I think he's a touch of the Brents there actually. I'm a politician. I'm probably an entertainer first, or whatever that gag is that I've just completely bowdlerised. But I'm pretty sure that he was pretty sure about who was responsible for economic improvement.
Of course it's on me personally. I'm the Prime Minister. I'm the person who set out those 5 pledges to halve inflation, grow the economy, reduce debt, cut waiting lists and to stop the boats. And I intend to deliver on those.
So it's a deal break with the British public if you don't deliver it by the end of the year. That's on you.
It's absolutely my responsibility. I've told the public to hold me accountable. They should be able to have politicians who deliver what they say.
OK, at least we've cleared that up. Terry is in Harrow. Terry, what would you like to say?
Hello, good morning, James.
Hello,
nice to speak to you again, mate. Philip Hammond was one of those people ostracised by the Conservative Party when they were sort of against Brexit in many respects, weren't they? And even if you look at Jeremy Hunt, was an anti-Brexiteer, wasn't he? Wasn't he a Remainer?
No, he was, and Liz Truss even more unbelievably. But the way that Johnson played it in 2019 meant that you either got on board or you cleared off, and Hammond was one of the ones that was compelled to clear off.
That's right, because he was speaking the truth, you know.
I think
he was
so.
Speaking truth to power at the very time, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think so, and I think it was obvious then, and if it wasn't obvious to someone then, it should be obvious to them now. But do we, I mean, well, you tell me, political toxicity, because crippling mortgages are obviously horrible. More people born in other countries coming here to work, would that still be turned into something toxic for voters in this country?
For people that don't really accept the fact that we're a multicultural society, James, you know?
Yeah. It's still got the legs.
What I gave as my example when I spoke to your researcher was that in around 1995, 6, around that time, we had 17% interest rates. And I'm a gas engineer.
Yes.
I was working in a lot of temporary properties.
Right.
And many of them were buy-to-lets. And they had been taken by local authorities to house people that were homeless who had lost their homes due to doubling of their mortgages.
Wow.
And, you know...
We're heading in that direction.
In the years preceding that, we sold all the council property, didn't we?
A lot of it.
Yeah, and made, you know, this own your property. You know, when you talk to people from Europe, and owning a property isn't necessarily, in some countries, isn't necessarily a...
Well, we've got no
lovely life.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, you've got rent control as well, but we've got the worst of both worlds. So that actually property ownership is going down now. I heard this morning that the number of households with a mortgage is pretty much the lowest it's been in the post-war period, but we still live in an economy where it's seen as the only way to secure any sort of financial security moving forward. It's a complete mess. It really is. There's a lot going on. Well, I mean, how far, briefly, Terry, do you think we are from a place where a politician could stand up, whether Tory or Labour, and say we need to attract more foreign-born workers to this country? Sorry, you know, to the people who don't like it, but we've got to do it.
We should be doing it. Listen, like an earlier caller said, you know, and in Rishi Sunak's statement there, he's meant they've forgotten what they actually govern the country for.
Yeah, but
they did that a long time ago.
It is odd. You see the pledges and you see the reality on the street, and you wonder why the two never seem to meet. Terry, take care, mate. Thank you for that. 10:53 is the time. Sam's in Leeds. Sam, what would you like to say?
I've got no problem with people coming here to work and you know, if we need people. But where we're going to put all these people, James, we've got massive amounts of homelessness in Leeds. Last time I went to London, the homelessness had gone up by a massive amount. Where are we going to put them? We've got no housing. Although when I walk around, I see lots and lots of empty houses and lots of empty buildings.
I understand your question, and it's an important one. But people with jobs aren't homeless.
Yeah, but I mean, if we let people come over, if we bring people into the country, then where are we going to put all these people?
Well, they're going to live in the same places as the people who have jobs and were born here.
Well,
you don't because the shortage of housing isn't the reason why people are homeless. People are homeless because they haven't got any money.
No, some people are homeless because they haven't got anywhere to live.
That's not really true.
It's true. Come to Leeds City Council and sit in there with people that I do, and
so
they
they've
tell
got
me
jobs,
there are
have
no
they?
houses to put them in.
So they've got.
Sometimes they're on the streets, and then other times they're put into hostels.
So they've got jobs.
We don't have the infrastructure either.
No, I know.
I'm not saying don't bring them.
Well, you are.
I don't care. It makes no difference to me.
No, but if you just let me point something out, the jobs, the people. How many homeless people do you think have got well-paid jobs?
Well, probably not many.
Well, how many roughly? Because
I have no idea. You tell me.
None.
Well, that's probably not true because probably some homeless people live with other people and have jobs. And,
then they're not homeless, are they?
Yeah, but they can temporarily live with someone whilst you're homeless. You can still be homeless and be waiting for somewhere to live.
Oh, so now we're describing people who are living somewhere as homeless.
And things like that.
Okay, well, anyway, I'm glad we established at the outset that you've got no problem with these people coming here.
No, I haven't.
No.
As a child from immigrants, no, yes. I haven't.
No, well, that's great. And where did your parents live when they came here?
Sorry?
Where did your parents live when they came here?
When they first came here, they were homeless.
But where did they live?
They lived in Leeds.
Yes, but where? In what building?
Well, after a few months, because they had to live separately because they were homeless, they were then given a council place.
If they were living separately, they weren't homeless, were they? Or did they live in different doorways?
My father stayed at St George's Crypt, which is a homeless shelter for men, and my mother stayed somewhere else, which was a homeless shelter for women.
And how long after that did they get their own home?
I don't know, a few months.
Well, that's what would happen now. If your analysis were correct, that's exactly what would happen now. So it's odd that you take that as an example, and yet it proves the problem you perceive doesn't exist. But hey ho, it's a good job we established at the start. You've got no problem with these people coming here. Liam's in Maidstone. Liam, what would you like to say?
Hello, James. All right. I'm a first-time caller, so go easy on me.
I'll go easy on everyone, Liam.
Thank you. So I've got 2 points, and I'm going to touch on the wages and immigration. Right. My first point, in regards to, I think the idea that wages going up puts inflation up is a bit of a simplistic statement, just because the way I see it, I think some wages need to go up and some are all right.
Yeah.
I can give you an example.
Well, that's always true, though, isn't it? Because the wages that need to go up are the sectors that are struggling to find staff. Most obviously.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, which is why it ties into the immigration. You know, you're not the people that are coming here. We need people to come in and fill roles, but they're not coming here to do tech startups. It's the stuff that gets mentioned in the papers about we need people picking fruit on farms, you know?
Yes.
So regardless of where you're from, those jobs tend to pay really poorly. These are the ones that need to go up.
But they're still not filling them. So they now can't get anyone.
Right, which leads me on to my second point, right? So I think you said earlier there's like about 30,000 odd people missing from the economy. Is that right?
330.
330.
Yeah.
So I was reading in the news relatively recently that apparently post-Brexit more people are coming here. And one of the figures was at some point it's going to reach like 1 million.
It's already gone through 500,000. I don't fully understand this bit. This is partly because of Ukraine and Hong Kong. But the net migration figures are the highest they have ever been, and yet Brexit is blamed for a 330,000 shortage in the workforce.
So, I mean,
which means lots and lots of people are coming here who aren't looking to work, which I don't quite understand.
Is that as simple as they're including people that are seeking asylum in that?
No, this is long-term immigration, around 1.2 million in 2022, with emigration, people leaving at about 557,000. The asylum figures are, relatively negligible in the greater scheme of things. Most people arriving in the UK in 2022, 925,000 were non-EU nationals.
Right. And then, of course, going back to asylum, people that seek asylum, they're not actually allowed to work when they first get here.
No, that's true as well.
So there's a hole here, isn't there? The reason I wanted to ask is I thought you might be able to clear it up for us.
No, I can't. I genuinely don't know the Ukraine-Hong Kong angle on this. I don't know. Or I suppose if people aren't planning on staying forever, then they may not be going into the workforce. But I don't understand why. Perhaps someone listening does. The net figures have gone through the roof, while the job shortages have also spiralled. Because you'd think one would cancel out the other, right?
Yeah, sort of. It's a simple numbers game, surely.
Yeah, I know. Well, it isn't. I don't know. So, I mean, whether Philip Hammond is right or not, is it independent of the question of whether or not or why seeing one number go up hasn't seen the other one come down. 10:59 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Talking of foreign-born workers, we turn our attention next to the Windrush generation, to the 75th anniversary, in fact, of Windrush. And I want to do it really straight today with your help. I just want to know your family's story. That's all. And I want to know either straight from the horse's mouth or from the horse's son or the horse's daughter or grandson or granddaughter's mouth. I want to know really what it was like and what the stories your family tells are. And the number you need is 0345 6060 973. James, you are falling into the animal self-identity malarkey by asking horses and their children to ring in with their stories about Windrush. I take your point. I did when I used the phrase horse's mouth. I thought Telegraph will probably run a story tomorrow about a radio presenter who thinks his listeners identify as horses. And also on the homelessness question, the conflation of homelessness and rooflessness is not something that we do on the programme, but Sam was very clearly talking about the people that she sees when she is in London and the people that I would see if I went to Leeds. So that obviously doesn't include people who are either staying with friends or sofa surfing or whatever it may be. If you're going to get your evidence of homelessness from walking the streets, then you are talking about people who are sleeping on them. But I'm always, as you know, always happy to clarify stuff if it isn't clear enough already. 4 minutes after 11 is the time. I always tell you the same story when we turn our attention to what we're about to turn our attention to. And it's a story told in Andrea Levy's book, Small Island. And I don't know how it works. If I did, I would probably be writing a novel at the moment instead of another non-fiction tome. Some stories get you and other stories don't. And even in the same book, in a collection of stories, or in a novel that tells several stories concurrently, some of them affect you more than others. And if you read the same book, it wouldn't be the same story that spoke to you as spoke to me. I mean, it's alchemy, right? It's magical. That's why literature is such a salve and such a liberator. You read the story, and bits of it stay with you forevermore. Sometimes, if you watch a lot of films and read a lot of books, and increasingly these days, don't snigger at the back, play a lot of video games. You can't remember where the story came from. You've just got this vague memory of a narrative, of a story that moved you. The reason why fascists hate art, historically, is because of the relationship between art and empathy. The reason why they burn books or shut down theatres or even have protests at musical performances in Stalinist Russia, the reason why they outlaw poets, Václav Havel, of course, who became president of Czechoslovakia, was outlawed for many years. The reason why they do it is because it teaches us empathy, and empathy is the most potent foe of fascism or any form of totalitarian government. You can't have empathy. If you've got empathy, then you will not be able to turn against someone on a dinghy in the channel. The more empathy you've got, the harder you would find it to hate someone simply because they're a bit different from you, because empathy gives you the ability to imagine that they are you. This isn't a particularly complicated theory, but I think it is worth repeating almost ad infinitum. Empathy is the enemy of almost all bigotries. You know, Just imagine what it would like to be gay. And your homophobia should disappear. And the story that got me in Small Island by Andrea Levy was, and again, I'm only 90% sure I've got the source right, because I've read a few books from this era and I've seen a few plays, but it was the brother of a boy, the brother of a man who had been killed in the Second World War. I think he was a pilot in the Second World War. And he thought, when the Windrush call came, that by dint of his brother's sacrifice, he would be received in England with enormous amounts of gratitude and warmth. And then reality intervened, and he found himself in a country where, I'm not one for saying, oh, that was fine then because the values were different, but the reason why things get better is because they start bad, and an awful lot of people who knew no better ensured that the welcome that people got in the Windrush generation, not just that one boat, of course, but it's become synonymous with the whole migration. The welcome was often anything but warm. And I always remember that, partly because I'm a soppy git, and partly because it was so powerful. Because you imagine, what I've lost my brother in a war. He was fighting on behalf of Queen and country. And it was my country, it was our country. And now we're going back to the mothership, if you like. We're going back from the Caribbean to the mothership, to the source of our national identity. This is one of the great legacies, I mean, appalling legacies of colonialism, because when you got back to the mothership, it turned out that you weren't equal or welcome at all. And in many corners of the country, of course, you're still not. Although it's always very important to remember that when compared to other countries, we're pretty good at this kind of stuff. It's largely our media that is toxic and racist, rather than our population. It's weird, but it manages to appeal to the rump, the base, the small-ish or smaller corners of the country that still do think you can't be British if you're black, or you can't ever fully belong if you're not from the indigenous tribes in Northern Europe. And that is the story I always remember. That is the story I always remember. The idea of expecting not a hero's welcome because his brother was the hero, but expecting a hero's brother's welcome. And then getting here and seeing signs in windows saying no dogs, no blacks, no Irish. So that's your starter for 10. That's just what I found myself moved by whenever these stories come round. And the 75th anniversary is a sort of mother of all coming round. So what do you know? It's highly unlikely there are many members of the Windrush generation, first generation, left, because it's the 75th anniversary and you'd be 16, 17, absolute minimum. So you're already well into your 90s. And I wonder whether there is a sort of, a bit like people who came back from the Second World War and didn't talk about it. I genuinely don't know. I just want to know what you know from your family about what it was like to arrive here 75 years or less ago. What it was like to arrive here from the West Indies, from the Caribbean, to respond to an invitation calling for people to come to the home country of the empire, if you like, and help rebuild it after the damage and catastrophe visited upon much of the United Kingdom by the Luftwaffe, and of course by the sacrifice of war, the workers that were no longer there because they had died on a foreign field. It is almost impossible, isn't it, to understand how they could have been anything other than welcomed when you see it through the lens of history rather than through the lens of being there. The idea that we've got a massive problem, we've lost a generation of men and some women, we've got huge damage and destruction done to our country and our infrastructure, everything from railways to everything needs rebuilding. We've got an NHS that is in desperate need of people. We've got sectors everywhere from construction to transport where we need people and we do not have them. We can't train our own because our own aren't there. I don't know what the conversations were like. I know where they ended up. They ended up with Enoch Powell, of course. But It's quite bizarre that the logic of it all got lost, or the simple mathematics of it all, the statistics of it all got lost, as it always does, of course, when these voices are allowed into the public space, got lost in the othering and the demonisation. So what happened in your family? Hit the numbers now, you will get through. What was it like to arrive? Everything from the culture shock to the temperature shock. That was the bit that I often found myself thinking about. And it's the opposite of going on holiday. You know, when you get off the plane, when you go on holiday, and sometimes the first thing that hits you is the heat of the air, not the heat of the sun, but what you're breathing in is hotter. The dryness of the air. I spent a lot of time in Greece. The light is different from what it's like here. Imagine coming from the Caribbean and getting off the boat in England on a rainy after. I mean, it would be like nothing you'd ever seen before. And also, it's a country emerging from war, emerging from the Blitz. Evidence of the Blitz still everywhere to see. You've gone from a sort of island paradise to an almost dystopian cityscape. What was it like is a question we ask a lot on the programme. I don't know if this will work. I don't know if the first generation Windrush arrivals told their stories to their family. 03456060973. But I can't think of a better way of marking the 75th anniversary than asking the question. I'm confident that it won't be the second worst way of marking it will only be, if it's a really bad idea, it will only be the second worst way of marking the 75th anniversary of Windrush, because the Daily Mail today has used it as a platform from which to attack Meghan and Harry. So even if this is one of the worst ideas I've ever had, it's not going to be the worst idea about how best to mark the 75th anniversary of Windrush. I don't know if you've been to Waterloo Station lately. It's a beautiful statue there. Statues are weird, aren't they? I sound like a Paul Whitehouse character now. But some statues, again, like stories. Crikey. It's almost like I planned this stuff. Like stories. Some artworks get you right in the feels and other ones don't. I often don't get statues. I saw the Kiss at the Tate Modern and that got me. Rodin's Kiss, that got me. I go, whoa, some sort of weird emotional reaction that I can't really explain. But the statue at Waterloo, the Windrush statue at Waterloo, it's just beautiful. It's so human and it conveys so much. But what it conveys, I think, most is optimism and expectation. And I'm not sure that optimism was justified or that those expectations were met. I'm just not sure. What's your family story? What did they tell you, mum and dad or grandma, granddad? What did they tell you about simply getting here? Let's start there, getting here. Also what it was like bigger, but I wonder if we can start with just getting here, getting off the boat, finding somewhere. I mean, what was it like? 0345 60600973. Hit the numbers now. You will get through. I spared you the old story about what was it like is one of my all-time favourite questions, but that is what we're asking today. Your family's Windrush story, with particular but not exclusive reference to those first moments almost, those first hours, days after getting off the boat, quite literally. Let's start in Tottenham. Azra's there. Azra, what would you like to say?
Hi, it's
Hello.
Afra, A-F-R-A-H.
A-F?
Yeah, like Afro, but bra.
My apologies. No, but
Thank you.
I do apologise. Sorry, Afra. I shall change the records accordingly.
That's okay, thank you. I'm a bit nervous, but
Why?
I really...
Why?
Oh, well, because I know you don't have much time, and I have so much to say, so excuse me if I'm talking
I'll shut up for a while, and you take your time, all right?
Right, okay. So for the record and for the benefit of people who may not know, our Windrush story, I am second generation. My parents came over. Our Windrush story began when our last known African ancestors were kidnapped and enslaved. I actually found my last known African ancestor at the turn of the century, going into the 18th century. Wow. Her name was Doll. She worked in the kitchen. I discovered the reparations document with her name and her children on it. Oh. That's not a story. However, so our first encounter with Britain was within that context. Yes. We worked our fingers to the bone to death for the British Empire, for the British plantation owners. Then we had colonialism. Every penny we earned, my great-great-great-grandparents was taxed to go to the Queen, to Britain, and the resources of our country were being, what then became our country, was being plummeted and, and sucked out in order to provide Britain and British people with a better life and with more wealth. We then my parents, my great-great-great-grandparents never talked about slavery, never told them that we had been enslaved. And I think it's for, self-esteem, so that we were always looking forward. I had to discover this for myself. And it started with the Roots. When Roots came out on the television, we were all in shock. And that's another programme in itself. But in any case, they were always very proud of being British and felt that they were valued. They signed up for the war, both the First and the Second World War. We all fought in the war, all of our grandparents, great-grandparents, etc. And then pride of all prides was when the British Empire actually invited us over to come and help the mother country, as it was termed, to build back, and dare I say, build back better after the war and take some of the jobs that, there weren't enough people for, and so on and so forth. And it was an absolute dream if you think that our country has been plumaged and everything, all of our resources, the unfair taxes of colonialism and so on and so forth. Of course, it was an absolute dream and something to be very proud of. So you can imagine, my father actually borrowed money from my mum's mum, against some land that she owned, and he left his children. He left 6 of his children, 2 from a previous marriage, and my 4 eldest sisters with my mother. The youngest was only 6 months old, to come to Britain first. When he arrived, he rented a bed. So him and who I call my Uncle Dundun, the Kandappa family, who's got brothers and sisters now, actually shared a bed. So one slept in the day, one slept at night, and they came over with just a few pounds in their pocket. There was no housing benefit. There was no unemployment benefit. There was no housing as such. And throughout his life, he never claimed a penny in benefits because we were always deemed his responsibility. Now, that's coming over on the Windrush. He had left his wife. She then joined him, but she had to leave the children behind. Wow. So there is another story of all the left behind children. There's actually a play in Brixton this Saturday, I think, about the GRIP children or something. We'll cover that to some extent. But that's another programme. But so they had to leave these children. These children were obviously have their own issues now with being abandoned. They came over to school in England and were deemed to be educationally subnormal because they had Caribbean accents, and nobody understood them. And it's a bit like being war-torn. Now we have support for children who have come over and, been abandoned and come over to the country with their education. We didn't have that then. But in any case, they saved up. I lived 5 in a room with my parents. We did everything in that room. We heated our food on a paraffin heater. We bathed in there.
Do you remember it?
We did everything. Oh, of course, yeah. Me and my brother slept in a cot, my younger brother, and my older brother slept in the bed with my parents.
Good Lord.
And it was a house on King's Road in Woolston.
Right. I know
then my dad actually worked hard enough and saved enough money. That was in 1968, I think, to bring to buy a house in 1968, and bring his daughters over in 1970, and only because they were going to decide that we were no longer British in 1961. And that we would have to pay, and there'd be all sorts of hoops that you'd have to jump through. And so my sisters managed to come over themselves, and I suppose in a way they'd be seen as Windrush children.
Yes, of course.
And then, of course, our Britishness being taken away when we were no longer needed, and all of our papers lost, and pretending that
You're referring now to the Windrush scandal, latterly.
Yes,
Yes.
that's right. That's
Yes.
right. When, for decades, my mum worked in the NHS, and sadly, she died in October.
I'm sorry.
Unable to, if she came over here, she wasn't entitled to any medical treatment. She'd gone back to Jamaica.
Right.
She'd paid her taxes to the Queen. She'd paid her national insurance stamps for absolute decades while she was here. And if she came over and she needed anything, because she'd been out of the country for 3 years, I think, or more than 3 years, she wouldn't have been entitled to anything. So this is just a summary, and I hope I haven't gone on too much.
You can take as much time as you want, Afra.
I'm talking so quickly, of what I believe should be, it's not even the 360, but
no, you're talking about the sheer scale of the story, spanning centuries, actually, not just a moment when a ship docked in.
That's right,
in
and I do believe, like one of your previous callers said, that it'd be lovely to have a celebration of all of the people who have come, and I think that's fantastic. But I think it would be, again, doing us a disservice not to.
Who said that? It wasn't one of my callers. You're my first caller.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't yours. It was.
You carry on like this, you're going to be my only caller, which is absolutely fine by me. But I don't see how anyone could, on the 75th anniversary of Windrush, start complaining about other immigrants being overlooked. But hey ho, we live in
it was on the other. Oh my gosh, he's not going to like me. But the man that comes on just before.
Oh, right. Sorry, I didn't realise that. I thought you'd made a little mistake about this show. No, I don't think we'll be taking any calls from anyone complaining about the Windrush people getting too much attention today, Afra.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. Did they tell you? Did they tell you anything about the sort of the? It's not a culture shock, is it? It's a complete shock. Everything was a shock, presumably.
Yes, they thought, and I think you'll find this a common thing when people start calling in. They actually couldn't believe how cold it was, and there was also the smog.
Yeah,
if anyone remembers,
yes,
Britain was very dark.
Yeah.
Because of the pollution from
industry. It was heavy industry, wasn't it?
That's right. And they actually thought that the houses were factories. And, where are the houses? Because they've never seen joined up houses before.
Oh, wow.
And, of course, all the colours are very dull, whereas in the Caribbean there's lots and lots of bright colours.
It was a bit like, in The Wizard of Oz, when it goes from black and white to colour. It was like doing that. It's like doing that the other way round, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And of course, there was lots of crying because I remember my 4 sisters arriving, and I was the daughter born in England, and you can imagine that I had their parents all of these years, and there was lots of tears because they had other people that had looked after them.
Yeah. That's a really good point. That
my mother's sisters.
And it's not going to be the same, is it? It's, however, I mean, you're conscious of your mum and dad being on the other side of the world, and that's going to stay with you in some ways for life.
Yeah, well, they cried every night, longing for Jamaica.
Of course.
They did. My sisters didn't want to come back to come here. And but they waited until my parents had gone. My mum would go to work and my dad would go to bingo. And I'd hear these.
Now that's integration.
Yeah, I'd hear my sisters wailing in the other room, crying for, me want mama, me want papa, me want, me want green banana, me want, in their Jamaican accent. Yeah. I couldn't understand a word they said, but by the time I started school, everyone thought I was Jamaican. I so much wanted to be like my sisters. I just spoke the way that they did. I took on their culture because they used to tease me, and people will talk about this as well. We were called English picking.
Right.
So we were the family. It didn't just everyone join up and be happy. The families were you've had those that came from Jamaica and those that didn't, and not everybody got on very well. I think for the most part we did. But if I did anything, we would be teased as the English picking.
So much more than just the story of the entry level stories of arrivals, isn't there? So much more. Fractures, family fractures, family trauma, going way beyond what we usually touch on. Afra, I'm so glad you were listening today. That's such a special way to start this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have you had a satisfactory say?
I really appreciate that.
Good. I don't want to go to the news until you're happy that you've had enough space.
I hope I have done the subject even a smidgen of justice today.
You're getting a lot of love as well, including one that I will share with you. James, please tell Afra that my name is also Afra, and I'm from Ghana, and it's my great-great-great-grandmother's name as well.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Well, can I tell you, James, that I was named something else at birth?
I thought you might have been.
But when I discovered, it took me 2 years, when I discovered my last known African ancestor and found her on the reparations document and found that her daughter was a mother at 10 years old with a plantation owner, and would have had no say and had to have watched her child being fiddled with and never heard her name actually called again. She was just called Doll. I felt really ashamed that I can't do anything about it, but I've always loved the North African name Afra, and I don't know what my ancestor would have been called, but I have decided every time someone says Afra, that's a fist pump for my last known African ancestor, and I have kept that name ever since, the last 10 or 11 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Gosh, thank you. A lot of people urging Afra to write a book. She's certainly a natural storyteller, and the stories we are telling, or you are telling, I've got nothing, not in this context, are about marking the 75th anniversary of Windrush, not just, of course, that boat or that journey, but as Afra reminded us, I mean, almost countless perspectives spinning off from that single phrase. What was it like in your family, particularly? And there won't be many left to tell us from the perspective of experience. It will be children and grandchildren mostly. Paul's in Manchester. Paul, what would you like to say?
Good morning, James.
Hello, Paul.
Just wanted to say thank you to Afra.
Yes.
She's made me feel rather even more emotional.
I can tell.
Than I did before. Just her going back into her history.
Yes.
I'll just give you a quick snapshot of my history with the Windrush and how things are. My uncle came here in 1952, my dad in 1956, my mum in 1960 at the age of 16 from the Caribbean.
Right.
So she was a babe in arms when she came here. Thankfully, my uncle had a job, so she lived with him for 5 years, I think, up until
her brother.
She met my dad. Yeah.
Her brother.
She had 2 jobs in her whole lifetime. She passed away 2012, sadly.
Sorry.
But she worked for GEC, putting plugs in sockets. And I know this because there's one thing that she taught me how to do at a very young age is how to change the plug socket.
It's a life skill, Paul. Still is, mate. Still is.
It still is. It still is. But she went to work for Royal Mail and worked in management there until she sadly passed away. So she had 2 jobs and she worked. But she's told me horrific stories. And I had one with my uncle where when he was over here, he was part of the army or something to do with that.
Right.
And he had a gun. And he was really afraid that because of the racist comments, etc., that were directed at him, that he was fearful for his life.
Gosh.
My mum, God rest her soul, she's told me numerous occasions where she's been spat at, she's been slapped. You know, a 16-year-old girl coming to a country that's totally different.
Of course.
And to be not embraced that way.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Did she tell you what she had been expecting? Did she ever talk about what she was expecting when she got here?
A different life.
Yeah.
And I'll extend this because obviously she got married at the age of 22 and had my brother, had me. That marriage didn't work out.
Okay. And
after the marriage broke down, my mum took us back to the West Indies. It was me and my brother, and the purpose to leave us there And then because she didn't want us to grow up in the environment then that's in the early 70s.
Gosh.
Now, 2 years ago, I'm 56 now.
Right.
2 years ago, across the road, minding my own business, I was called AFG.
Yeah.
And you talk about that incident in Kent or Essex with the woman in the bar, etc.
Yeah.
That's what I was called across the street, and a knife was pulled against me.
Oh.
So, 1960, my mum is 16, and she's been spat at, she's been slapped at, and in 2021, a 54-year-old black man can walk the street in a neighbourhood that he's lived in for 20-odd years and can be called an FG and have a knife pulled on him. Tell me that society has changed, James.
You've got me up against the wall here, Paul, haven't you? Because I do think it's better than it was in 1960, but it's obviously not better enough, is it?
No.
And I think
No.
some people have turned the clock back a bit in recent years in the kind of arena that we're talking about. I think quite deliberately sometimes, and sometimes by accident. That empowerment that scumbag must have felt to do what they did hasn't happened in isolation or by accident. But I hope that they represent a tiny, tiny proportion of the population. Tiny proportion.
They do, James, but also, with my mum, it hardened her up, and she then hardened her children up.
And that's not a good thing.
No, because then you get people saying that, black people or BAME people all got attitudes. If you've been browbeaten,
it's a really good point.
That you were born.
Yeah, how dare you?
What do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, even in labour wards, it even translates to how women get treated in labour wards as well. A perception that black women are somehow got higher pain thresholds, or they're going to be strong. There's so much, isn't there? There's so much. So I mean, generations to come will still be wrestling with the ramifications of these astonishing movements of people, and everything that comes with it. Everything that comes with it.
I mean, we've got the wilderness, compensations given. If those people who came here in the early 50s were receiving those payments 10, 15 years ago when all this stuff was coming out, but this government doesn't care. It doesn't care about who you are.
Doesn't seem to, and they've dropped the ball on that. And I guess Sadiq Khan's been talking this morning about the fact that some of the people who are due compensation are probably going to be dead before they get it. And I don't know if you saw the story earlier this week, Amelia Gentleman in The Guardian, who's done astonishing work in this field, picking up on a BBC investigation that saw hundreds of long-term sick and mentally ill people from the Windrush generation were sent back to the Caribbean from UK hospitals, sometimes without even giving informed consent. So it's not a rose-tinted conversation, this, is it, Paul?
No, but you know what?
Go on.
I praise God that my mum had the fortitude and strength to not leave us in the Caribbean, to bring us back.
Yeah.
And then because she could see or hope, I think the word is hope more than anything else, she hoped that the world would be a better place back in England, and it would give us a better standing in life going forward. And then she worked and she worked, and she rarely had a day off work.
Right.
And God forbid if we wanted a day off school, no way on Jose. I had chicken pox, and she wanted to send me back to school.
That's not ideal. I mean, I don't want anybody listening. That is definitely not a course of action that either Paul or I would endorse or recommend. But you speak of there's a bittersweet flavour to that, isn't there? Because she shouldn't have had to be as strong as she had to be, if you see what I mean. It's as if you built, and that can have impacts in other areas of your life, your inner life and your outer life. But she had to be tougher than tough, and that will have passed on good things to you, and it would have passed on less good things to you. That's the nature of family, isn't it? It's the nature of life.
Yes, and I miss her dreadfully. I miss all my family just because they're not here. But you know what? I've tried to make a life out of my world here.
Yeah.
I've got great friends of all persuasions. I mean, literally, they're all... because I'm just a people person. But I'm the one also got that strength of character that I got from my mum. To say,
clearly.
You know what? If you come for me...
I'm here. I'm ready.
Yeah.
If you come for me, I'm ready.
Yeah.
We honour her memory, Paul. We honour her memory, and you do her proud. Oh boy. Take care, mate. Melanie's in Birmingham. Melanie, what would you like to say?
Hi, good morning, James.
Oh, we've got one of those phone lines. I don't believe it. We're going to have to try and sort that out, and I really do want to make sure we have time to talk to you. Can we do our level best to get Melanie's line back up? Carl is in Colindale. Carl, what would you like to say?
Yes, good afternoon. Thanks for having me anyway.
You're very welcome, Carl.
Yeah, I've got a double-edged sword going on here. My mum, her dad came here and during the wartime, and I didn't get to know my grandfather. Yeah, he came here and served as a soldier and helped fighting against,
Yeah.
And afterwards, the invitation that came to the Caribbean that we should come over and help rebuild this great nation of ours. And for later years in life, some of these people was just rooted up illegally and put on planes and deported out. I remember as a child, most of my friends who were coming to England in the early 60s, they came up on British passport. Yeah, and British passport, that make them British. Yeah. However, some of them, while I look into things, some of them, when they came here, they didn't bother go through the necessary things to say renewing the passport.
Didn't think they needed to. Didn't think they don't get round to it, or didn't think they needed to.
Well, this is it.
Yeah, and then a few years later, boom.
That is what is going on.
I know.
And when I first came here, I came here in 1973, and as I said to the lady who put me on hold, Ted Heath was the Prime Minister at the time.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Harold Wilson and so on. And I hear that we're talking about the SUS laws, and I make inquiries about that. What is SUS laws all about? And they say, the police can just stop you and search you like that. It never happened to me.
Good.
It never happened to me. I was one of the fortunate ones. But today, in today's society, is it last week or the beginning of this week?
It was, it was.
When I hear the Home Secretary saying things like she's given the powers to the police to stop and search, I know what that can cause. The resentment again.
I think she does. I think she does as well, actually. There's no excuse for not knowing after it's been explained so many times over the years. But isn't that interesting that Paul draws a comparison between something that happened to him 2 years ago and something that happened to his mum in 1960? And then you're reminding us that the stop and search laws of the early 70s, which did untold damage, Suella Braverman seems to want to bring them back.
Yes.
What a weird old bunch we are.
The hurtfulest thing about these things, as immigrants ourselves, we shouldn't be even like that.
Yeah. Well, I know her parents came here from overseas, so it is for some people harder to understand. But
you understand?
I do understand. I think I'm more comfortable you saying that than me, because you are from overseas yourself. But I do know an awful lot of people find it harder to process that attitude coming from someone with a very recent family history of immigration than from the kind of people who, for example, talk about indigenous tribes of Northern Europe. I find it tricky territory, Carl, but I'm supremely comfortable with you sharing your thoughts on the subject. Thank you. I'd read you a couple of texts, and then we've got a wonderful guest in the studio. My parents came here in 1955. I can't call in as they have both died this year. Dad, age 92, on your birthday, actually in January, and Mum a few weeks ago. I'm so sorry for your loss. Age 96. We buried her on Monday this week. They found it cold, both weather-wise and people-wise. Mum had terrible treatment when she had her first daughter in the UK at the hospital. We had bricks thrown through our windows at home. I salute the resilience of that generation, as the attitude was to ignore this treatment and carry on. I could not have done it myself. And when my father came over from the West Indies in the 1950s, he said little children of 10 years old were digging roads and walking barefoot in the snow. The situation in countries like Jamaica were actually better at the time, yet these West Indians are now looked down upon by many in the UK. That's from Graham. Lots of love coming in for all of our callers today, but I want to introduce you to Vivi Brown, if you don't know her already. You're one of those people who does lots and lots of different things, but the singing is what you're best known for. Yes. Fourth studio album on the way. I want to talk about your grandmother first. When did you find out that she'd written a book?
I'd always known that she'd written this book. I think when I was about 11 years old, I remember my mum holding it and it being this big thing. But when you're 11, you don't quite grasp how special something is, perhaps. Something such as this, like a beacon of showing the generations, showing the stories of what they went through. And I think it's only now that I'm approaching 40 and I've got my own children, how much I realise how special this book is. This book about Windrush and her experiences of coming to this country from Jamaica.
And as we've established today, actually, there aren't that many repositories of stories. They will have just been passed down verbally, if at all, because some of the badder experiences that we've been hearing about, people like to sort of shut up and lock away. But it's called When Our Ships Come In, and it's a collection of experiences, really. Absolutely. It's a collective of these amazing black women who are from Leeds. That's where my grandmother is from. Well, she's from Jamaica, but she went to Leeds from Jamaica. Do you know why? I think it was to do with a job that my granddad was offered, and my grandmother, or I call her Nana, who she sadly passed last year, but yes, she was a nurse. So I think that they got these job offers to come to work in the UK, and that was kind of what encouraged them, motivate them to come to England. Follow the Labour. Oh, cause exactly. my family are from Leeds as well. It's, right. Which part of town? Well, my grandma had a pub called the Market Tavern, which was at the time the roughest pub in town. Which obviously I've fallen a long way from that tree. But it was a kind of pub where you could buy anything from a horse to a machine gun. Apparently, I was just struck by the crossover. So you want to get your grandmother's book republished? Absolutely, yes. But you've also worked on your own book about Black Britishness. Yes. So you can't separate these two things, can you? Absolutely not, because when my grandmother and my grandfather came to this country, it has had such a residue on my identity as a Black British person. When they came here, they were Jamaican. They had these expectations of coming to Britain, and there was a lot of positives, but there was a lot of negatives. And when I look at myself now as a Black British person, one of the questions that I ask myself is, and this is the name of my album and book, is, am I British yet? And when my grandparents came here, there was a disfranchisement almost of their identity, because they were Jamaican and then they came to this country in Britain. And there was this real kind of complication of this exodus from Jamaica. So yeah, I've got this book coming out with my album, and I want to republish my grandmother's stories, but I also want to include now my mother's stories and my cousins and my sister's stories. So we're seeing a real generational collection of Black Britishness. Why is it important? It's so important to talk about the realities of the Windrush generation, because as we know, it's Windrush Day today, and it is definitely coated in celebration. We've got this rich culture, clash of different cultures, but it's important to hear the actual voices of people who came here from their own mouth. And I think it's really good to see how things have changed.
through generations, but also to talk about how things haven't changed. If we talk about the Windrush scandal, for instance.
Yes, of course. And the story this weekend about people being sent back because they were poorly, because they were ill or had mental health problems, being sent back without their... And how shocked were you when the Windrush scandal broke, Vivi? I mean, was it traumatic?
It was traumatic.
Yes.
And no, there wasn't an actual effect.
So it's like having a rug pulled from under you, I suspect, or some sense of certainty taken away.
Absolutely. And there's this sense of you feel like you belong.
Yes,
you feel that you are part of the society. You see your grandparents, you see your parents work hard. And then all of a sudden you watch the television and you're seeing someone who looks like your granddad or looks like your Uncle Earl or looks like your Uncle Raymond.
Yeah.
And they're being sent back even though they came here when they were 4. And if I be honest with you, as a 40-year-old, where I've lived in Britain all my life, I'm very proud to be British, Black British, it really did hurt that we're still challenged by what we are and who we are in this country.
And still accused, I think, is the only word I can think of not being British. And told that you can never be. I see it more on social media than anywhere else. But there does, in recent years, seem to have been a bit of a turning up of the volume in some of those corners of the country. So should we have a little listen to some music from the album? I don't do this very often.
Oh,
in fact, I'm not sure I do it ever. What do I do now? This is what normal DJs do, isn't it? They say, but so do you know what we're going to play?
I believe so. I think we're going to be playing a song called Black British.
Let's have a listen. The book, the album, your grandmother's book, everybody's story. Is it a silver lining to the recent scandals that we now have had our attention turned for the wrong reasons to the Windrush generation, but on days like today, it means we're probably paying more attention to the right reasons why we should be talking about it than we would have done previously?
I think so. I think it's a moment where we can celebrate, look at the positives of Windrush. There are some great positives, you know, the beauty of culture, the mixture of culture, the understanding, the evolution of us understanding each other. That's a great thing. And it's also about the voices and the stories. So yes, this book is definitely a nod to celebrating it, but it is also a nod to the reality of what it was. And we mustn't forget that on this day with Windrush, as we celebrate and be positive, that there are some real painful stories that come out.
Our callers have picked up on that already. What you're doing is British history, actually, and some people have a problem both with the British and the history bit of that conversation. But, the harder you work, the fewer of them there will be. Yeah. How can people find out more about your work, Vivi?
If you go online, just check me out on all my socials, Vivi Brown Official for Instagram or vivibrown.com. And just follow our journey. This is a real sociological project. This album is not just music. It's a real deep dive into my Black British identity and celebrating it and rediscovering it and paying homage to all of those that came before us, like my grandmother, like my granddad, like your Uncle Earl out there, like your Uncle Raymond, who used to dance at the blues parties and would work hard, and like the nanas who people thought they had a tail.
You're God, yeah. Of
when
course.
they went to, when they first. This album is a celebration and declaration of truth to them.
Your grandma would be very proud of you, I think.
I hope. I mean, I do get teary-eyed when I look at her, when I read the book over.
I'm sure. I'd love to see it. Vivi Brown, thank you so much. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. We're expecting the interest rate news any moment now. We'll have a quick look at that, and then, all things being equal, we'll get stuck into Mystery Hour after this. Do not adjust your sets. It is Thursday, and it is just afternoon, and we will be doing Mystery Hour shortly. Attempting, actually, as a few of you are suggesting, to carry on with the conversations about Windrush, but they will be unfolding throughout the day on LBC. I know Sheila will be returning to it at 3 o'clock, and I felt that was just such a powerful hour. Danny Blanchflower is, of course, a former member of the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee, latterly the Professor of Economics at Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. He joins me now. Straight up reaction, really, Danny. I think the Clever Money said it would be 0.25 percentage points, but they've gone for 0.5.
Yep, I think the big deal as well is that there were two dissenters who actually didn't want any change at all. And I'm very struck by the fact that these guys don't seem to understand how you're supposed to do monetary policy. You're supposed to worry about things 18 months down the road, and you're supposed to ignore the things that happened yesterday because you can't do anything about them. So this looks like another huge mistake. The two people who voted against basically correctly said, well, we've done all these rate rises. They haven't really had much of an effect. They're going to down the road. And actually the problem is down the road, inflation is actually going to be below the target. This is confusing for people to listen to.
Yes.
But I think this is just about trying to hurt ordinary people.
Well, it can't be about trying to hurt them. They must think that the ends will justify the means.
Well, I think that's I agree. That's what they think, and I think it's completely wrong. All the evidence, actually, we have lots of evidence now. What's the problem you've got? You've got a problem of inflation. Well, what's the problem you're going to create to solve it? Well, the answer is likely much worse. On the one hand, obviously, people are going to be wiped out in the housing sector. I mean, all these 1 million people odd, their mortgages are clicking upwards now to a much higher rate. That's going to wipe out the housing market. But the other thing it's going to do is it's going to raise joblessness, and that's much worse. We know that a 1 percentage point rise in unemployment is about 6 times worse than a 1 percentage point rise in inflation. But, of course, the people voting for it aren't actually impacted by unemployment. That's for the listeners of your programme. That's for everybody else. That's not for them.
So I'm reminded of Lord Farquhar in Shrek 3 when he says that some of you are going to die, but that is a risk I am prepared to take.
Well, that's it. I think that's the right way to think of it. I mean, what you have here are two dissenters who set it up very well. And actually, it turns out, I was looking at the Sun today. Yeah. What do they call the governor of the bank? The plank of England, I think they're calling him, or something.
Yeah.
I mean, they've clearly turned on him because, in some sense, you think this move is going to cost the Tories the next election. I mean, this is
unless
really
inflation
very
unless inflation starts coming down sooner rather than later, in which case
I agree
Sunak will be doing a lap of honour, won't he? I mean, you clearly think that's unlikely. Is it impossible?
No, it's not impossible. I mean, inflation is clearly going to come down.
Yes.
That's clearly true. But so the question is really, was this move and all these rate rises, were they necessary? Was the hurt that people had, was that necessary? I mean, if you look around the world, where I live in the United States, inflation's now at 4, and next month it's going to be below 3.
Right.
So the contrast you have to look for is, why is the UK different? And guess what it is? There's a word that Brexit.
No, that's what makes a mockery of the models, is it? Because a lot of people are pointing out to me that almost all of the precedent shows that increasing interest rates in this way does have a measurable and pretty immediate effect upon inflation. But we have created such a bizarre and unique petri dish that a lot of the old rules no longer apply.
Well, I agree with that, but there's two other bits too.
Go on.
No, there's 2 other bits. I mean, the first bit is that the inflation was not caused by excess demand, which is what gets fixed when you raise interest. What you've got are 3 things. You've got COVID and the COVID supply shock.
Yes.
You've got a war in the Ukraine, and then you've got Brexit. The 3 things together mean basically that the rise in interest rates is the wrong solution. Think of this: what they've done is they raised the interest rates by 500 basis points, and inflation's gone down 1%. So the question is, if you follow their thinking, I mean, my friend Adam Poser today says they've got to raise it to 6.5. I mean, to get it down, they might have to go to 10. I mean, this is absolutely ludicrous. So you're quite right. They haven't got the model right. This is just another way of trying to get around the fact that what distinguishes the UK from everywhere else. It's hard to think of what that might be other than the one word you and I have talked about frequently.
Indeed.
It's about Brexit.
I think you might have answered my final question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, which is being generous, if you would, Danny Blanchflower, to your successors on the Monetary Policy Committee, to your successors at the Bank of England. Being generous, what would they say in response to your criticisms? They would say, no, Danny is wrong because
we have to worry about inflation yesterday. And I would say, well, that's what you worried about in 2008. Right. You missed the Great Recession then as well. So I think the answer is that the incoherence of this, and in a sense, I was just trying to read as we're talking, in a sense, it sort of ignores the harm and the hurt that this is going to impact on people. Think how many people are listening to you today who are going to see their mortgage prices rise 20%. Right. So if you read this stuff, it has no sympathy for ordinary people. This is just about the bank. The bankers once again doing things that bankers always want to do, which is transfer the hurt to ordinary people.
Some of you are going to lose your homes, but that is a risk I am prepared to take.
I agree with that. That's terrible, isn't it?
It is pretty terrible, although it was Shrek 1, I apologise, not Shrek 3. I know you're a stickler for detail, Danny.
Yeah, I've never had a conversation about the difference between Shrek 1 and Shrek 3.
Well, you have.
Great to chat.
You have now. Always a pleasure. Danny Blavsfair, live from Dartmouth College in New Hampshire, where he is, of course, a professor of economics, a former member of the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee. Gosh, 10 minutes after 12 is the time, which means...
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Mystery Hour with James O'Brien.
It is 10 minutes after 12. I had to check the time then. Didn't want to mess it up. This is your weekly opportunity to achieve the sort of satisfaction not ordinarily available anywhere else on your radio dial. A couple of phone lines free if you're quick, because things are a little bit different from normal. 0345 6060 973. My favourite contributor of the week will receive a brand spanking new Mystery Hour board game. We had new photos done yesterday. I don't know whether, if we do another version of the board game, I'll get the new photo put on the box, because that photo that is on the box is so old. Even my children don't recognise me. But it's all there, and you can win one if you're brilliant. And well, you don't even have to be brilliant; just have to be mildly diverting. You have to be my favourite contributor of the week. You can get hold of your own copy at mysteryhour.co.uk, and you can get, of course, all the terms and conditions for this competition at lbc.co.uk. Otherwise, let the games commence. Might start doing that every week, Keith. What do they say? Is it let the entertain? What does it say? Let the something commence in Gladiators? Yeah, something like that. Anyway, Andrea is in Huntley. Andrea, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on, Andrea.
A couple of months ago, you said that you stopped biting your nails after therapy.
I did, yes.
And a very similar thing happened to me when I left a bad relationship, and I didn't realise until I nearly poked my eye out.
Yes, I was having an intimate scratch, Andrea, but we won't go any further than that.
I just wondered if other primates bite their nails through stress or anxiety. I mean, I'm sure they clip their nails, with their teeth, but I wondered if any of them did it when they're stressed or anxious, or is it just humans?
Yes. Yes, I mean, I guess back in the day, I don't know, I think someone actually asked about this on Mystery Hour, what they would have done. Would they have used stones to file them down or bite? But you probably didn't need to in the wild, because your lifestyle, such as it is, would involve use of claws or nails or whatever we want to call them. But the stress of it, yeah, I like that question. Other primates do.
Thank you.
No, it's lovely, and it is weird, isn't it, when you stop? I'm so glad you got out of that relationship, but it is such a strange thing to notice, and then you sort of think back and think, why has that happened? I'd done it since childhood. I'd done it since I was tiny.
So same here. And now I have to file them, and it's the weirdest thing.
Have you not been for a manicure yet? Oh,
just one.
Yeah, they're nice, aren't they? Bit dear, though. A bit dear for what they are. Andrea, thank you. You're on the list. Do any other primates bite their nails as a consequence of stress? 0345 6060 973 is the time. Is the number. 13 after 12 is the time. Martin is in Warrington. Martin, question or answer?
Question, please, James.
Carry on, mate.
My question is this. Do sheep get sunburned?
Well, you mean after a very recent shear?
Yeah. Well, every day I drive my daughter to the local railway station to give her a lift there so she can go to work.
Yeah.
And I drive past a field full of sheep every day. And obviously this time of year, they've all been sheared.
Yeah.
So they look pretty bare. And the weather we've been having recently has been so hot and sunny that it has been playing on my mind a bit. They don't look too stressed.
They don't?
But,
they're not biting their nails?
No, they're not biting the nails or hooves or what do sheep have?
I don't know. Trotters, hooves. Don't ring in. Don't ring in. Trotters is pigs.
No.
So, I mean, they must get flipping hot with all that wool.
Yeah, exactly. So I was hoping one of your fellow listeners could...
they can't, no, because it's not just in England, is it? They've got sheep in really hot countries as well.
That is true. That's very true, yeah.
So you can't... Yeah. It seems highly unlikely that sheep get sunburn, but I will put the question on the list.
I suppose you could rephrase the question, assuming they don't get sunburned, is what stops them being sunburned?
All the wool.
Well, the wool's been... Well, indeed, but, domesticated sheep have all the wool
They do. No, I like it. I mean,
Sure enough,
yeah.
don't
I mean, well, hang on. Does anyone else get sunburned apart from us?
Well,
We're back. It's the same question as the nail biting question.
It is. It's the same question. There's a theme about primates and their behaviours which are distinct from humans, isn't there, James?
Unique humanity, the unique nature of humanity. Sunburn. I mean, it's an evolutionary glitch, isn't it? Because we've sort of shed our... Anyway, so I don't know. We'll find out. Does sheep get sunburn and do primates bite their nails? I like that. It's all gone a bit David Attenborough. Sort of. It's 12:15. It's not mystery hour, is it? It's mystery for 50 minutes or something. Mystery something. Anyway, on we go. Jonathan's in Croxdale in County Durham. Question or answer, Jonathan?
Shall I go to...
What? I hope this isn't going to be a bit awkward. What? Hello? Jonathan?
Hi, James. Sorry, I thought I was still speaking to the producer.
That's all right, mate. Get me off the speaker. Get me off speaker. Get me off speaker immediately.
I've got headphones on. Hang on. Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm getting the headphones.
All right, mate. In your own time. There's only 1.46 million people waiting.
Sorry. So my question is...
Yes.
Why don't women find baldness attractive?
I do all right.
Well, I mean, I'm slightly follically challenged, and I do very well if I say so myself. But given
what a pair of bozos, honestly. Do we know that they don't? Do we know that they don't?
Well, some do, but I think we could agree it's pretty niche. I mean, if you compare it to other sort of testosterone-driven characteristics like muscular frame and deep voice, broad shoulders, facial hair.
Yeah, all right, mate. Stop it now. I'm in the room, you know. Stop it. Yeah, exactly. So why? Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, otherwise, there's certainly a perception that women find it less attractive because otherwise men wouldn't A, get so het up about it, and B, go to such lengths to cover up, to cover over. So what
exactly.
So we're looking for an evolutionary explanation, are we?
Yeah,
really.
Well, I guess so. I'm sort of staying with the human uniqueness.
Yes,
David Attenborough.
Well, no, it isn't because you'd have to say, do female, I don't know, ducks find bald? Well, you got the bald eagle. I'm going to stop this line of inquiry before I say something that I regret. Jonathan, you're on the list. Thank you, mate.
Mate, can I just say, please? Sorry, I've been on before, and last time I was on, you said you loved my novel Undercountry, and my publisher was like, "You idiot! You didn't say the name."
Go on then.
It's the Undercountry by Jonathan Tregell about the miners' strike.
No, and it is a superb piece, an absolutely superb piece of work. What are you working on at the moment? Have you always been in Croxdale? Didn't you weren't you somewhere hot last time?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, while I was researching Undercountry, I actually met someone. I was in County Durham, and subsequently had a daughter. So the strapline really should have been "Nobody does research like Tregell." But the publisher didn't want to run with that.
I love it. Take care, Jonathan, mate. That's a lovely story, and a lovely question. Why is baldness not a great attractor of women? Given that it is supposedly, I think evidentially, it is an indicator of high testosterone levels. 20 minutes after 12 is the time. You're listening to James O'Brien on LBC. David's in Darlington. Question or answer?
Question, James.
Go on.
So, why do we cry when we're sad or happy?
Yeah, I like that. I mean, we're doing this deliberately. We're having sort of physiological type questions for It's like a natural history hour, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it was based on that question I had a few weeks ago about the watery eyes.
Yes, well, that was dry eyes, which oddly is a slightly counterintuitively named condition, isn't it? So why do we cry when we...
So you have your tear ducts.
To show people, to clean your eyes out.
They flush things out of your eyes.
Yes.
So why do you cry like the end of Toy Story 3? Or It's a Wonderful Life? Or... at weddings or funerals.
What's the last thing you cried at?
It's a Wonderful Life.
It's such a beautiful film, isn't it?
It is.
It really is. Superb. Thank you, David. I'll try and find out for you. And so, I mean, that's an evolutionary thing as well, isn't it? So the evolutionary expression of baldness, crying, sunburned sheep, and gorilla's fingernails. I'm not going to repeat the questions. I'm just going to give you the broad subject areas. So crying, baldness, sunburned sheep, and gorilla's fingernails. 0345 6060 973. Thank you, David. Brian is in Ealing. Brian, question or answer?
Oh, hello, James. Good afternoon.
Hello, Brian.
I've got a question.
Carry on.
I'd like to ask, what is the significance that if you spill some table salt, that you throw a pinch over your left shoulder? I can remember this going back to the early 60s, but I never understood why.
I know this. I think I think because we've had it before, but I'm 99% certain that I fully and completely remember the reason for this. And oddly, I'm going, Brian, to help you picture the answer, I'm going to remind you of the well-known cartoon Cat and Mouse, Tom and Jerry.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And do you remember quite often in Hanna-Barbera or Looney Tunes cartoons, you would have a devil and a saint, a devil and an angel appearing on the shoulders of the character?
Yeah, I do.
And the devil would be on the left shoulder and would whisper, for example, go on, steal it or drink it or eat it or whatever, or go and kick it. And the angel would say, oh, no, don't do that. That is terrible. You must do the right thing. So the devil, historically, is perceived as being sitting on your left shoulder. And if you spill salt, you throw a pinch over your left shoulder to cancel the bad luck that you would get otherwise.
Oh, I see. So it would minimise any bad luck coming your way.
It's superstition, isn't it? Combined with a little bit of religion. And some people will now text me to say religion is superstition, but hopefully I've just saved them 5p, and we've pointed that out, that some people believe that already. That is your answer, Brian.
Oh, well, thank you for that, James.
Oh, you're very welcome. I shall accept a round of applause with your compliments. But I won't put myself in to the competition for the Mystery Hour board game. Cordelia is in Bushy. Question or answer, Cordelia?
Question, please.
Carry on.
Okay. Do or can moth and butterfly mate together?
You are disgusting. Moths and butterflies sitting in a tree?
But no, it's actually in my ivy.
Is it? You think they may have?
Well, I had a little. I took a picture on it. It's on my Facebook.
Yes.
And it's very micro butterfly that look like a moth.
Right.
But it looks like a blue British butterfly.
Yes.
But it also looks like a small dusty wave, and it's like a cross in betwin.
So you think it might be the result of moth butterfly crossbreeding?
It looks like an hybrid.
A hybrid, that's it. Yes.
I put it on Facebook just to ask people, and everyone is bamboozled. And it could be a moth, or it could be a butterfly, and
or it could be a little bit of both.
Well, look, a donkey and a horse make a mule.
No, they don't. They make a neigh. Or an Eeyore. No, they do. And there's another one as well, isn't there? There's what's the other one? A mule, a donkey, and a horse. Oh, I can't remember.
It's a mule,
yes.
The two mules for Sister Sarah or something like that. Like in.
Exactly.
It was a Clint Eastwood movie. But
oh yes.
Do we have an hybrid? Do we have hybrids between a moth and butterfly? Because this one, that micro one, stayed on our windows. It was a heat wave, though.
Yes.
And it stayed on the window for ages, throughout the night and throughout the day.
Was it? Could it have been dead?
No, it was not dead. It was flying away afterwards.
Okay. Well, I don't think they can. Do you get moth caterpillars? What's a moth larvae? What's a moth before it's a moth? Sounds like a riddle.
Well, I don't know.
No,
I really don't know. I'm not an entomologist or,
No, nor am I. A lepidopterist, actually, I think would be more accurate.
That's it. If we have an answer from an entomologist, I would love it.
We need a lepidopterist. There's something I've never said before. Is there a lepidopterist in the house? We shall try and find out. And the best way to do is to do this. Can butterflies and moths have little babies? 03456 or big babies? 03456060973. Cordelia, thank you. I shall get you an answer. My feeling is that it's unlikely, but your feeling is that it's likely. Am I right? We may never know. 27 minutes after 12 is the time. Terry is in Chelmsford. Terry, question or answer?
It's a question, James. It's a frivolous question again, I'm afraid.
Oh, we all like frivolous. Where would we be without frivolous questions, Terry?
What is a monger? Why can they only sell fish or iron or advocate war? You don't go to a shoemonger or a hairmonger to get you, or when you're buying anything. It's just fish, iron, or they advocate war.
We've done this.
Have we? Have you?
Yeah, we do.
God, don't say it was me who phoned in and asked it, and I've forgotten.
Oh, we're all at that age. We're all at that age now, Terry. It's perfectly plausible. Flipping heck. There are other examples as well. There were other.
There?
Yeah, but I can't remember what they are. I think if you go back in time, I think there might have been alemongers.
I've never heard of that.
No, well, it's olden days stuff.
Are you sure?
Yeah, quite sure. It's going to be Latin, I think, or Latin or Anglo-Saxon, but I think it's Latin.
Okay.
What would the Latin word be? Was it ironmonger, ferret? I don't know.
I never did Latin.
So there's two questions really. Why do we use it, and why do we only use it?
For fish, iron, or war,
or scandal.
Oh, can you have a scandalmonger, can't you?
Scandalmonger, fishmonger, ironmonger, warmonger.
Yeah. But you don't say I'm going to buy some shoes. I'm going to the shoemonger.
No, but perhaps you did once.
Well, went to the shoemonger.
Costermonger.
Oh, yeah. But what is a costermonger? Are they selling Costa? What is it, a coffee? They're selling coffee.
I can't remember what a costermonger is, but you're only allowed one question, so put that back or put that away.
All right.
Costermonger.
Right,
any other mongers?
I can't think of mongers. I can't think of any mongers.
All right. I mean, so why is it only those relatively few examples?
Curious.
Well, yeah, curious. Or I'll accept either answer with your permission, Terry, on this occasion.
Yeah,
so if they can tell us
frivolous.
where the monger comes from, that would be good, or why the monger is confined to the 4 or 5 areas that we've identified.
Yeah.
Art monger? There's no thing. Mike set up.
Never heard of
Gossip
that.
monger? Gossip monger?
I think you're making things up, Jeff.
I think we had this question a few years back, and I'm stringing it out in the hope that I'll have a little flash of memory stroke inspiration, but so far I've got nothing, Terry.
Okay, all right.
All right, you're on the list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So we want the butterflies, the moths. Someone who sells butterflies? A butterfly? I don't think so. Butterfly monger? A moth monger? Do any other primates bite their nails through stress? Do sheep get sunburned? Why don't I don't know. Emma suggests that the notion that women don't find bald men attractive might be down to the men's insecurity, and people keep sending me pictures of Pep Guardiola, which none of us need. I don't know that that's true, but that's Jonathan's question. Is there an evolutionary reason for women not to find bald men as attractive as men with hair? Why do we cry when we're happy or sad? Do butterflies and moths mate? Lovely question from Cordelia. And the monger question that we definitely had quite recently, but I can't remember the answer to it. And so it's an open goal there for somebody. David's in Tufnell Park. David, question or answer?
Question, James.
Carry on, David.
As a bald
primate
individual, primate, I hope, I have to ask you, I'm afraid, yet another natural history question.
Oh, good Lord.
This is a different one. Are humans the only species that, when sober, suffer from dizziness and balance issues? Because I see squirrels and really big fat cats.
Isn't that a Louis Armstrong song? I see squirrels, really bad fat cats. Yeah, go on.
That's not no. But I see them wandering along fences and ledges, completely sure-footed. I never see them wobble. I never see them fall off.
Yeah, but you've never seen a dog do it.
No, and I've never seen any animal clearly wobbling. I mean, when they walk,
but a dog would. If you made a dog do it, the dog would wobble.
Oh, no. I'm going to have to report you to the RSPCA.
Well, I'm not suggesting that anyone makes their dog walk across a fence, but there's the animals. You see, I think what we've got here is a category error. Because I think you're basing your question on the ones you've seen that can balance, whereas in fact, all the ones you've never seen balance because they can't balance.
Possibly. I mean, I don't think I'd see an elephant walking along a fence.
Exactly.
But, okay, let me turn the question around.
Okay.
I'm going to try and help you here, James.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are humans the only animals that suffer from dizziness and balance issues? Or do other animals also have balance and dizziness? Particularly, so it's all about balance, really.
It is all about balance. It's something to do with the ears, isn't it? Balance and ears. So if you somehow got a chimpanzee to do that thing with a broomstick where you spin around and around, and would the chimpanzee then stagger all over the place like a human?
Exactly.
Because then, of course, if it got very stressed, it might start biting its nails. So if we could do a cruel experiment, we'd be able to get two answers for the price of one this week.
I'm waiting for somebody to call you with the answers to at least 4 of these questions.
So it might be the same person. It's an odd diversion into natural history, sort of biological-based questions. But you're on. Is the human? I'd be amazed if other animals didn't, especially primates. Oddly, it didn't have similar things. But we need to know, don't we? Have you ever seen a dog on a skateboard?
No, have you?
Only on Twitter, only on YouTube. But they are capable of some balance, but not as much balance, I would say, as a squirrel. I don't know who's going to be able to answer this. David, thank you. Barry's in Battersea. Barry, question or answer?
It's an answer.
Carry on, Barry.
It's an answer to: do sheep get sunburned?
Yes.
The answer is absolutely they do.
What?
Yes, they do. So I've got a bit of a story here. So my brother used to have a couple of pet sheep. I know it's an odd thing to keep as a pet, but he lives in deepest, darkest Wales, so it seemed appropriate to keep the lawn short.
I mean, you say pet.
Companion sheep. Let's call them that.
Yes.
And anyway, one of his sheep got all purple on its forehead and scabby, and they got the vet out because they thought it had some kind of disease, and the vet basically said it's actually sunburn. So he used to have to get up every morning, wander down to the field, and slap sun cream all over the forehead of Dolly.
Really?
Now, yeah, Dolly's mate didn't get sunburned, but Dolly got sunburned.
Well, I presume they know, do they, like humans, so they would go for the shade? Because I was thinking about sheeps in hot countries, but you'd know that you're in danger again, so you just go and stand in the shade or lie down and keep so only the muzzle, as it were.
Well, it was, but that's because they were woolly. But I guess if you shaved them, who knows?
No, I reckon it's just the muzzle.
Because purple sheep.
Well, but you wouldn't be able to find enough shade necessarily to shade a whole by sheep in a field. But the muzzle, you're always going to be able to shade because you just face the other way from the sun, don't you?
Possibly.
But the answer is yes. The answer is they can get sunburn because Barry's brother's sheep did.
Absolutely. And in other news, I've also seen dogs surfing on the internet, so that's pretty good balance as well.
And you're not really supposed to do that, but I'll pretend it never happened. Does your brother are the sheep still with us?
No, they've passed. They've passed, unfortunately. But they had a great life.
That's good to know.
Into sausages or anything else.
No. Well, that's good to know. Thank you. Would you like a round of applause? First one of the day,
yes,
I think.
Please.
There you go for Barry. That's for Barry. And Dolly as well, I think. The memory of Dolly. 12:39 is the time. Daniel's in Stoke. Daniel, question or answer?
It's a question, James.
Carry on.
Why do cricket players still wear trousers?
What do you want them to wear, you weirdo?
Well, it's a summer sport. I've never understood.
Oh, you mean shorts? Shorts.
Well, yeah. Why don't they wear? Yeah, why don't they wear shorts? I mean, I've never understood why football is a winter game and they wear shorts, and then the English have invented this game that they play in the summer.
It's not though, is it? It's an English summer. And you don't run around. You do. It's mostly standing around. I mean, there's a case to be made for bowlers wearing shorts, but for the rest of them, first of all, you wouldn't be able to strap your pads on it. It'd pinch terribly, wouldn't it? If you strapped your pads on your naked flesh, you'd get some terrible, terrible pains.
Yes, I can imagine. Well, I mean, when you see them training and warming up, it's all shorts and they're in the nets.
Yeah, because they're training and warming up. They're doing a lot more physical activity than they are doing during an actual game.
I just don't understand why, they must get
it gets
hot.
cold. Well, I mean, like, 3 reasons then. Number 1, it gets cold when you're standing around doing nothing, which is about 80% of cricket. Number 2, when you strap your pads on, you don't want to be able to catching little bits of flesh in between the catches and the buckles, because that would really flipping smart. And number 3, where are you going to shine the ball?
I'm sure they could find somewhere. They mostly shine it on the back of their thigh, don't they?
Yeah, but it's lower down than the average short, isn't it? It goes almost down to the knee. You want to be shining your ball.
I was just, looking at Ben Stokes last week, just looking so hot. It just seems silly. I mean, footballers...
Well, it was hot. It was hot. It was a very hot day, but it was one of the hottest days ever. If they were playing in April or October, it wouldn't be, would it? That is the reason.
Yeah. I just think it's one of those things that people do because it's traditional.
All right,
rather than
so
because
you're not accepting my answer. You're clearly not accepting my answer, Daniel.
I don't know. I think you look back at tennis, and all the old players are there wearing their long trousers.
But you're running around all the time in tennis.
But I think they do that in cricket now, don't they?
No, they don't. Not if you're at, I don't know, mid-on, long-on or something like that.
But if you were going to sit down and invent the game of cricket now, there's no way that you would invent the clothes for it and go, I know, we'll wear long trousers.
Have you ever caught a little bit of flesh in a buckle?
Well, yes, but
that's why I would. That's why if I was inventing the game of cricket now, I would insist on long trousers.
I don't know. It seems silly. Well, I've never thought I'm going to go and play some cricket in the backyard with one of my sons. Do you know what? I'll just go and take my shorts off, put some trousers on before we start.
But that's a silly parallel because you're not playing a 5-day test match with your children. You would do, especially if the weather turned, got a bit parky, and they wear jumpers. Why do you think they've got jumpers then, clever clogs?
Well, that only the wimps wear jumpers.
Nonsense. They all wear jumpers. Sometimes the umpire's got about 8 jumpers. Why do they wear jumpers? Answer the question.
Well, I think I bet it's more the non-English players that do that, and it's probably to do with superstition.
It's nothing to do with superstition. I've still got a cricket jumper from my school. And why do cricketers wear jumpers? Answer the question.
I don't know. Maybe because it gets cold.
Because it gets cold.
Chilly.
Ergo, they wear long trousers.
Yeah, no, I'm not convinced.
This is ridiculous now. I don't know what else I can do. I've just brought the jumpers to the party.
That's true, but they also.
We both know the jumpers. We both know the jumpers. The jumpers has ended this. We both know it, but only one of us is prepared to admit it.
Okay, you win.
Thank you. Round of applause for me. Very gracious, Daniel. I wasn't expecting that capitulation, actually, I must be honest. I sense it was reluctant.
I'm happy to oblige.
Thank you very much. And where is your answer? It gets flipping cold. You do a lot of standing around doing nothing on a mediocre day, or even on a cold day. Julia's in Banstead. Julia, question or answer?
Hi there, James. I know it's only you. I'm really nervous. So I've been looking forward to this day like all of my adult life. I finally have an answer.
The pressure's on now. The pressure's on now.
I know.
Go on.
So it's the nails, the nail biting.
Yes.
And just through sheer luck, I was on a course yesterday because we have to take regular courses in the NHS.
Right.
And this one was a mental health course.
Yeah.
And it was that the guy was saying that humans are the only species on Earth that have the perception of death, that know about the future and the past.
Okay.
So we're the only ones that fear our own mortality. So we're the only ones that feel anxiety. So in that animals will feel stress, as in at that moment. So as I was explaining to the producer,
yes,
it's just that if you have a lion chasing, I don't know, whatever it is that the
gazelle,
elk,
a gazelle.
No, it's not an elk, it's a gazelle.
Gazelle.
They're chasing it. Yeah, and they're
chasing. It'd be a long way from home. It'd be a long, long way from home if it was chasing an elk, Julia, or possibly in a zoo. It could be in a zoo, I suppose.
So anyway, it's chasing your gazelle and it's going after it, and it misses the gazelle on the bum. It misses it. And then the gazelle then thinks, I'm going to go back there and start eating my grass again, because it only fears that in the moment. It doesn't know that that lion will come back and kill, because it doesn't have any perception of its own death.
Okay, a bit like, so it's like Boris Johnson in a way. It lives entirely in the nanosecond, and it's all about instant gratification. Or fear, fight or flight.
He is an animal.
He is an animal. You can say that.
Yeah, it's just a base. Yeah. So that's
a beautiful
what it is.
answer.
So you will have like parrots that will peck their feathers out because they're stressed at the moment and their own environment, but they won't be doing it because they fear anything in the future, or like the biting of the nails.
Existential. It's not existential. It's just I really hate it in this cage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're on?
Yeah.
Qualifications. Qualifications.
Oh, I went on a course yesterday.
Do it, Keith.
Yes.
Look at that. Fantastic.
Oh,
thank you, Julia.
my husband's going to eat that.
Yes. Dad. Yeah. Because you might even win the ball game, Julia, just to put the cherry on the icing on the cake.
Oh, don't.
No, I don't want you to get over it.
And then you'll take it away.
I don't want you to get overexcited. I don't want you to get over it. It's hot enough out there. Julia, you take care. Thank you for the lovely words. It is 12:49. We better hurry up. Todd's in Market Drayton. Todd, question or answer?
It's an answer, James.
Carry on, mate.
It's the moss and butterfly question.
Yes.
So they don't actually crossbreed, so they're genetically quite different, but they're part of the same group, Lepidoptera.
Yes.
Which from the Latin means scales on the wings. So interestingly, that's why people think moths have dust for blood. It's actually the scales coming off the wings.
Oof, gosh. Wow. They have quite similar mating rituals, do they, moths and butterflies, or do...
Depending on the family, so there's they mostly use pheromones to attract mates, but it's very species specific.
I like it.
So we actually have about 2,500 species of moth in the UK, as opposed to about 60 species of butterfly.
But they definitely can't mate with each other.
It's very, the genetics would have to line up. So
it's never going to happen.
The evolution, it's never going to happen.
Qualifications?
I studied entomology at master's level, and I specialised in moths.
Now you do?
Well, I studied that. I'm actually studying a PhD now, looking at arable field margins.
Gosh. So where's Market Drayton in Shropshire?
Yes, so it's a university there that's used to be an agricultural college, is now a university.
Ah, there we go. Okay, God, how fascinating.
Yeah.
I bet it's never come in this useful before, has it?
It hasn't come in this useful, and this is actually the first time I'm listening to Mystery Hour live today. I might normally catch up on the podcast for about the last
that's such a lovely moment of serendipity. It was literally your question, wasn't it, that came up?
Yes, literally.
This is me. This is my moment, as Martine McCutcheon once sang. Todd,
yes.
Massive round of applause for you, mate. Lovely work.
Thank you very much.
Look at that. Oh, sensational. 12:51 is the time. Other ones that still need answers. The Munger question. Why do we cry? That should be quite straightforward. Is there an evolutionary basis for believing that women don't find bald men attractive? Do only humans have balance problems? And I took Daniel's cricket trousers question. Apparently, it's Velcro now on pads, but the jumpers was the zinger there, not the Velcro. Why do cricketers wear long trousers? Well, why do they have jumpers? Because even however hot it is today, next time they play, it could be cold, and you'd rather have long trousers. Also, they're quite baggy. They're not that hot or unpleasant. Kerry's in Guildford. Kerry, question or answer?
Answer.
Carry on.
So, the word monger is
Yes.
to describe a trader or a dealer in a specific product, originally from the Latin word.
Yes. Do we know what word?
What was the original Latin word?
Yeah.
No, it escapes me, but I'm going to go with cheese because I'm a cheesemonger.
You are a cheesemonger. So am I, actually.
Are you?
Well, most days.
Most days. That's a good profession to have.
And the question of why is it only specific to some trades? Why don't we talk about, beer mongers or I don't know, flipping salt mongers? Chances are we did once. It's just that some have survived and some haven't.
Well, we probably did, but it used to be a kind of a good term, a nice term, and it's become less favourable as a term.
Yeah, when you talk about scandal mongers or warmongers or that kind of thing. But no, it just means a trader, and it comes from the Latin, and it has over the years narrowed down to costermonger, cheesemonger, fishmonger, and ironmonger, pretty much.
Yeah. So raw materials, products, coffee. I think you used to have coffee mongers. Yeah.
That's got you a round of applause, I think.
Thank you very much.
Look at that. Where do you monger cheese?
I monger cheese in Liphook in Hampshire.
So you're in Guildford today?
I'm in Guildford most days.
Is that how you pronounce it? Liphook, not lip hook. I've been pronouncing it Liphook all my life.
Liphook.
Liphook. And do you have a cheese shop, or do you just produce?
I have a cheese horse box, so I sell my cheese from a converted horse box in Liphook.
What, round farmers markets, or you have a permanent berth?
I have a few permanent pitches that I go to, but I tow the horse box from pitch to pitch.
Do you have a name for your business?
I do. It's Mascarpone.
Mascarpone? Oh, I'm so glad I asked.
Intended.
Oh, well played.
2 rounds of applause.
Well played. Did you get the one already? Is that 2? Yeah, well, you deserve it, Carrie. That was beautifully played. Thank you. I didn't know, by the way, that was coming. I just was trying to give her a free plug. I didn't know we were going to get a free pun as well. Tom's in West Molesey in Surrey. Tom, question or answer?
It's an answer.
Carry on.
So, about humans and balance. So, it's basically anything over the size of like a medium-sized cat would have to have a stabilising mechanism for them. I.e., so dogs, for example, they've got a centre of gravity, like a lower centre of gravity than humans, for example. Cats, anything smaller than medium-sized sort of cat, gravity has less of an effect on them, just down to their overall mass.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So, it all comes down to the centre of mass over the size of, if anything, over the size of a cat, medium-sized cat. So if you notice, like some slightly larger cats will struggle with climbing things and they'll fall more frequently, just down to the fact that they're now a mass that gravity has more of an effect on them.
Qualifications?
So I studied biomechanics at university.
Okay, because I've torn on this because it sounds extremely plausible, but it also sounds a tiny bit unlikely in that gravity doesn't work as much on little things as it does on big things. But
if you think about it as like the moon versus the Earth and the sun, the mass difference in the amount of pull that it has, and then if you go down to say something like a single atom, the Earth isn't pulling on a single atom. The
you're clearly
will have
right.
An effect on an electron.
Oh, brilliant answer.
Yeah,
round of applause. Round of applause to Tom. That's really nicely done. I'll cross that one off.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. I like this. We've come good right at the end, haven't we? It's like a sort of sprint finish. Is it like a sprint finish? It's like a sprint finish. Scott's in Clydebank. Scott, question or answer?
Hi, James. It's an answer.
Carry on.
So why do we cry when we are happy or sad?
Hang on a minute. I just need to check. I think, is that the last one? Do I need to go? Because no offence, but we've still got baldness. If someone can ring in with that, but I don't think anyone is at the moment. So don't be offended, Scott. It feels like I'm stringing this call out a bit. All right.
No worries. I'd be interested in the baldness one myself as I'm fading a little bit on top. So that would be a good answer to have to.
Carry on.
So the reason we cry when we're happy and sad is because when you're happy, when you're sad, your brain releases chemicals, as we know. It has to release those chemicals somehow through your system, and they come out through your tears.
Are you serious?
Yep, absolutely. There was a study, I can't remember when it was done, and they analysed the chemical components of tears, and the chemical components that are released in your brain when you're happy and sad are within your tears.
So that you're washing out the chemicals of some sort. All right then, clever clogs. If you're happy and you know it, why do you clap your hands?
Why would you not? Like, you also stamp your feet.
You do. Qualifications?
So I worked in child mental health, and it was researched it in a way to help children understand that it was okay to cry.
Oh, mate, that's one of my all-time favourite qualifications. So you're giving them the...
It was one of my favourite facts of all time, and I tell people it all the time. So the same as, why do you go to the toilet? Because you need to release the toxins.
Yeah.
So why is it up? Why do you not cry? Because you need to release those toxins, let them out, and it's absolutely okay. It's a normal bodily function.
Oh, that's beautiful. Have a round of applause. I love that.
Thank you very much. And I've actually spoken to you twice in the 1 week. This is like a lifetime achievement.
That's a record. It's not normally allowed, but Mystery Hour is like a twilight zone where none of the normal rules apply. Thank you, Scott. I love that. I'll remember that as well. Cam in Coventry? I mean, I felt I answered that question fairly comprehensively, but I can give you 10 seconds, Cam.
Okay, student inquiry about the cricket trousers. Back in the day, women used to wear skirts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that would sort of negate your...
But they weren't allowed to wear trousers.
Well, there you go. It's part of cricket, though, isn't it? It's the rules.
It doesn't negate. It doesn't negate anything. The question was, why don't they wear shorts? Because they would be cooler. And the answer is they don't want to be cooler because it gets so cold out there. Ergo, they have jumpers.
No. It was about shorts and trousers, the lower half of the body.
Yes, but it was a weather-based question. It was based on the idea that they'd get to... I knew we shouldn't have done that. There you go, Cam. If you have missed... my favourite is Julia, isn't it? I mean, even if it wasn't, it would be. She was so lovely. And also, you know, her husband might not believe she got on, but if she gets a brand spanking new Mystery Hour through the post, she'll be home and dry. Although, I have to say, this week, if Julia hadn't come along, it would have been a very tough choice. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back on Catch Up on Global Player or on the Whole Show podcast, where you'll also find all of LBC's shows to catch up on, as well as the world's biggest podcasts, including the Mystery Hour. There's a huge Mystery Hour archive. You could probably listen to Mystery Hours between now and Christmas, non-stop. Download Global Player for free from your app store or head to globalplayer.com. 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 Or head to globalplayer.com.